Hello, everybody, and welcome to the deepest dive on Dead Space, the best, most thorough discussion about Dead Space on the internet. I'm Ben Hansen from MinMax. I'm here with Kyle Hilliard from MinMax.
Accurate.
Yes, welcome. We have Jacob Geller, YouTube extraordinaire.
Hi, I'm from YouTube.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to think of like everybody's specialty. You're like you're the cerebral guy, if I may, Mr. Geller. You're the thoughtful lore man. Is that fair?
Maybe not lore, but like vibes.
Yeah.
Feelings.
Okay. Yeah. The vibe of Dead Space. That's your specialty. We have Kate Sanchez from But Why Though. Welcome, Kate.
Hi. I was like, man, what's my specialty? I think it's like posting thirst on Twitter, maybe.
Yeah, you're the MinMax's thirst reporter, so we're looking forward to all your hot takes on the Ishimura. I don't know. Actually, it might come up.
It's why Hansen reached out to you to do this.
No, but you were on the deepest dive for The Thing, and you love horror in general, so you are the horror expert here. I hope you're okay with that role.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, perfect. Also, we have Zach Moonbach. Welcome, Zach.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, first time we've ever had a developer on the deepest dive that I can think of. And you weren't just any developer. You were like the sweet spot of developers. Obviously, you just released Airborne Kingdom. How'd that whole thing go? How was the big launch?
It was good. Yeah, that was back in December, so I'm on summer vacation. It's been cool.
Can you explain how it launched in December, but then it like won an E3 award for most anticipated game? What was that?
It's coming to console. Sometime. I don't think they've announced the release date. I'm sort of involved, but it's like low pressure for me, the console part.
That's just the easy, fun second wave for you. Do you want to give a real quick pitch on what Airborne Kingdom is?
Sure. Airborne Kingdom is a flying city builder. We'll just leave it at that.
That sounds
You can check it out, airbornekingdom.com. Let's talk about Dead Space.
All right, man. And you're the perfect person for it because you have the development insight that we need. You were the producer at Visceral for Dead Space 2 and 3, but not Dead Space 1, correct?
Correct. I was at Visceral for Dead Space 1, but I was not on that team. I really wanted to be on that team. I asked to be on that team. During the development of Dead Space 1, I was working on Godfather 2.
Okay.
The open world classic.
Okay.
That everybody, enjoyed and knows and loves.
Is there a universe, though, where Godfather 2 sold more than Dead Space 1?
I don't think. I don't know, but man, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. But
that game changed what happened with Fredo
in
the movie. Yeah.
What'd they do?
They left him. There was no kiss of death. Like they just I don't remember how they changed it, but it was significant. Like he was around way longer. Like the betrayal thing didn't happen.
Oh, weird.
So if you're a real Godfather fan, to get all the lore, you have to play that game.
Yeah. It's like another version of the story. Yeah. But I'm excited to have you because
the Godfather 2 open world classic.
But you know so much about development and you know so much about this team, but you still have like kind of an outsider's perspective a little bit on Dead Space 1. So I think you're going to have a lot of fascinating insight just to really set you up to fail. But we're looking forward to hearing your insight, man.
Friends that worked on it, I was around. I, worked my way onto the other two games, not in any major role. But I got to be part of them, so yeah, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. Like,
perfect.
I really wanted to work on it badly.
Okay, great. Okay, this is going to be a big whole discussion all about the first half of Dead Space 1, the 2008 classic, I guess you can call it now, with enough time passed. So this is covering everything in chapters 1 through 6, so up to the very end of chapter 6. And I know this is going to be tough for everybody, but no spoiling anything beyond that because it's a huge community game club. People are playing along with us. So as best we can, please don't spoil anything beyond the end of chapter 6. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for being here. You can unlock the podcast version of this discussion, our future discussion, all of our other deepest dives by supporting us over at patreon.com/MinMax with 2 N's. And if you enjoy this type of content, you can support it or join it over on Patreon. You can always submit a comment for the second half of Dead Space and we'll read it next week on the big finale for the Dead Space deepest dive. Let's see, should we set the scene a little bit for Dead Space? Like, I think I'm probably the only one here who has never finished this game. I'm sorry, Zach. I've never really played Dead Space 2 or 3. Like, I got to maybe chapter 2 before in Dead Space a couple times. So I'm coming in really fresh to this. And I assume everybody else is an expert. One of your favorite games, Zach, Jacob Geller, you're obsessed with Dead Space lore?
I am a big fan of Dead Space. I'm an even bigger fan of Dead Space 2, which I recently told all of you to. But yeah, this whole series has been a big one for me. And actually, look, I'll spoil this reveal early. Check it out.
Nice.
I remember
the big Game
when
Informer
this
cover.
came in, and I read all of the Game Informers obsessively, but like this issue that had like Dead Space and Fear in it, I was like, this is it. Like, this is where I define who I am as a gamer.
From here on out. Perfect.
Yeah.
And Kyle, you're also in the camp, right? Of liking the first one, loving the first one, but then being gaga over two?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, really, really liking the first one a lot. But then 2 is like probably one of the best games of that generation for me. I love Dead Space 2, and I really like Dead Space 1 a lot.
Okay.
And I like Dead Space 3.
All right.
Dead Space 3 is better than it gets credit for.
Good. All right. Do you get that a lot, Zach? Do a lot of people come out of the woodworks to be like, hey, I like Dead Space 3?
No,
Oh.
not really. You know, I don't hear much from Dead Space fans. I wasn't like some huge, forward-facing contributor on that franchise. Like I was more of a fan that like got to work and help out. I mean, like the biggest thing I did on Dead Space 2, I hooked up all the subtitles for all the cutscenes, which is, it's like I wasn't creatively like coming with like a bunch of really cool ideas.
Right.
On 3, I got to come with some. I had like more. Like the more I was involved, then all of a sudden that's the one that kind of nobody. Not that nobody liked, but it didn't kind of like, I think it scored in the 70s and the first 2 were 90s, right? So
Right. Unless you're Tim Turry from Game Informer who gave it 9.75 and still defends it
it was
to this
better
day.
than it got credit for. I think that there were some handcuffs in place, like microtransactions and multiplayer. And as a team, I think we did really good dealing with those. Like those didn't come from the team, right? And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll unpack all that. Kate, what's your history with Dead Space?
I don't really play sci-fi games that much. I don't know why. They've never really interested me.
Huh.
With the exception of the Mass Effect trilogy and the Dead Space trilogy. Both of those games have a solid place in my heart. And specifically with Dead Space, I was working at GameStop at the time. I'd been there about 2 years, and we were doing the Dead Space 3 launch. And they were like, okay, well, you have to know about how to talk about these games. So when you work at GameStop, you can rent the games and take them home and play them.
Yeah.
And I played through 1. And I was like, holy crap, because I'm a big horror person. And at the time, like I loved the fear games. I loved anything that could just get in my head. And Event Horizon is one of my favorite movies ever.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, this hits. And then so I played through 2. And then I bought them. And then Dead Space is actually the first game I ever perfected. 100%ed, and it's also the only game I've ever speed run through or
Wow.
speed ran through,
Right,
because
right.
I loved it that much. It had been a whole of a long time since I had played it, so I'm really happy to be on here getting to like play it again and like genuinely like rediscover my love and my passion for it, which has always been there. But it's kind of like when you played things before the internet, or at least being on the internet.
Yeah.
It's a very different feeling. And yeah, I actually realized I don't think I've ever talked Dead Space with anybody outside of like in person. So this is the first time I'm doing that too.
Well, you're going to be doing a lot of it, so buckle up, Kate. Okay, we like to play a little game here on the Deepest Dive called Most Common Comment to kick things off. So we had a lot of people, anybody who supports us at any tier on Patreon, over at patreon.com/minmax, they submitted a comment for us to share on the show. There were some redundant comments. Everybody start thinking. Jacob, what do you think was the most common comment about the first half of Dead Space 1 from our community?
I think it was the heads-up display, or HUD,
Okay.
or the lack of it.
Okay, UI in general, I'll accept as a broad category. Kyle, what do you think?
Creepy baby aquarium room.
Okay, all right, solid guess. Kate, what do you got?
I don't know, maybe the sayings on the walls.
Okay, solid. Yeah. And Zach?
I'm gonna go audio.
Ooh, okay.
We talk about the audio a lot.
That was probably number 2. Number 1 was the asteroid shooting sequence. Just barely cut it out. And believe it or not, people don't
Yeah.
like it.
I was dreading it, and not to get ahead of ourselves here,
No,
I
please.
was very thankful to have gotten it on my first try, because when it originally came out, I got stuck there for a while, and it is frustrating. And
Turns
not
out
scary.
playing it with a mouse helps. I found on this run through.
Wow, 3 time for
Zach,
you, Zach?
you just threw up a 3.
Yeah, it was
3
third try
tries.
for
is that-
me.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, somebody wrote in, they're like, it was over 10 times. I was like, I'm not good at games by
That was
any
my
means.
first playthrough.
Really? I just lucked out, I guess. It's
Just
tough.
good. I mean, I remember that being a topic of reviews and stuff. Even like, this game's amazing. This game's scary. Isaac's kind of dopey looking, but that's cool. But that asteroid sequence, man, that sucks. You know, and like, it's just it gets to a point where it's just like not scary after a while. You know what I mean? If you're repeating it over and over, like I like the intensity of things breaking around you and smoking, but it's like when that just keeps happening, it's like, all right, come on.
I would say like up until play 4, I still had the same level of like anxiety that like the horror part of it. And then after 4 attempts, I was like, okay, now I'm anxious, but it's like an angry anxious and not
Right.
like an atmospheric anxiety.
I felt like sometimes the asteroids around, if they were too far up or too far down, they weren't doing damage to you, as far as I could tell. So I was just trying to stay right in the middle as much as I could, just so I didn't have to move that much. And it seemed to work pretty well. So
That might be it. I just remember like the producer of that sequence is a good friend of mine, and the designer of that sequence, we're also friends. You know, we're not like best friends or anything, but I've known this guy for a long time, and we're friends. And I had to go in the office next day and have some words.
how does that happen?
Can I ask you real quick, Zach?
Yeah.
Were you like playing builds like through the course of development since you were sort of in the studio, or was it very much you didn't really play it until it was done?
So I played something very early on, and then there were plenty of opportunities to play. But my thing is, if I can play at that time, you can kind of get your hands on anything. And so if I play something and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna really want to play this, then I'll like try not to see it until it comes out. So that one I played like this really early demo. They basically just had this room and necromorphs could go in vents and pop out, and there was like dismemberment. And just playing with that for like 20 minutes and giving feedback on that, I'm not gonna play this till. I mean, I played it before it came out, but I played the final version like
Right,
before
right.
release, you know.
So I read online
Just
that like,
enamored with it enough to be like, I'm holding out. For
Yeah. Like I don't want to see this.
Yeah.
Don't spoil it.
yeah, I read online that they had the first tech demo for the game running on the original Xbox as like the kind of proof of concept to EA. Do you know if it was that early of a version that you were playing, or is that old hardware?
It was like they basically just maxed out an Xbox for one room, right? They couldn't not ship the game on that, but they
Right.
had, it was on an original. Maybe like the thing I played wasn't, but I remember that being the thing. Yeah, is that
Okay.
they maxed out like an original Xbox.
There's that Ars Technica video that's like war stories that has talks a lot about it, and they have footage of that original Xbox version, and it looks good, but it also does look like that generation of games. But they have they have lights and they have like machines moving around. It's very recognizably Dead Space. It's cool.
Oh wow. Kate, what do you think? What's the big takeaway after playing the first half of Dead Space again? What stands out to you?
It's still amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, and honestly, like I think my biggest takeaway was how well it does atmosphere and how much more scared I was at the stuff that I didn't see clearly versus the big giant things coming in my face. It was always like it was that shadow that looked like a necromorph, or it was the something I could hear in the distance but I couldn't see where it was coming from. It was those pieces that I think work really, really well to make the Ishimura like it's a haunted house. Like,
Yes.
I actually see more of Event Horizon in this movie than I do like Alien or The Thing. Like I see Event Horizon here because like everything, like, yeah, that was my takeaway, is that there was
Totally.
just so much put into making the Ishimura than necessarily just having the scares be the necromorphs jumping out, which I think, yeah.
No, totally. Like it does.
They do jump out a lot, though.
They
Oh
do.
my God,
They
do they
do.
love it. It totally is to the point that it's almost laughable how much of just a haunted house it is. Like you go into the morgue and it's like, the door to the little panel opens up and there's a corpse in there. It really feels like a witch is going to jump out at some moment. Or like every time you go through a door, it feels like you just see like one necromorph like just dart away. It's just like everything is timed perfectly for just that little bit of a tease of, are you scared yet? You surely are scared.
Yeah, I think to that point though, it's like, this is the thing that I kept thinking about, and to reference Game Informer again,
Wow.
there was this line in like Reiner reviewed this game, and he wrote in it, he was like, I would believe that this ship was fully functional, you know, which I think is such a good line, because that's what it feels like. And so it's like you have these things popping out that feel kind of like they're the haunted house parts, but it's like they're popping out in like essentially a real spaceship is what it feels like. It's like you were just walking around a real place that happens to have these spooks set up for you to like, you know, bump into.
The other thing that I actually noticed, and I don't know if this is an intentional or if it's just me going big brain, but a lot of the doorways, the like coils and like the pipes and like it reminded me of H.R. Geiger's like work, in that you see all the tubes and all the every doorway, like all of that, like, and I didn't notice that on like when I played it way back when, and I don't know if it's just because I've been exposed to like way more like analysis and stuff now,
Yeah.
but all of those little pieces, like the fact that like every piece of the Ishimura feels like care and love and how can I make you as creeped out as I can was put into it, like that was actually really stellar.
Yeah, even in like, it's weird how it takes just mechanics of the ship and makes those terrifying. There's that one room a little bit later on where it's just giant kind of brown gears and pistons and you're firing them up. And it's like, this is just cool sci-fi giant ship stuff. But at the same time, you're firing it up. And of course, it's just getting loud as hell because everything in this game is loud as hell. So you're realizing, oh God, if I fire this thing up, then I know some monster's going to come up behind me. So even marveling at the ship has its dark side of, well, now the monsters can come get you. But yeah,
I mean, it's a game where you go to somewhere and you hit a switch and you watch something big happen in the distance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like big pieces like coming together or moving, and you're like, I did that, and oh crap, there's something behind me.
Yeah, it's always okay. There's something behind me. Yeah, Morn submitted a comment on Patreon saying, the Ishimura is a marvel of game design. It's the best character in the whole game, and it often feels as though it is a living, breathing beast that Isaac is trying to escape. Yeah, I think part of that too, and God, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, if you know more about this, but obviously sound design is incredible. And just small things like, it feels like there's some areas in the ship where there's vents, and it sounds like it's actually like human breath coming through the vents. And I'm sure that they sampled that on the sound team, because
It's more than that. Like if you get in the right rooms, you hear like these weird little whispers coming from the vent. Like the thing that really jumped out to me playing this again, I haven't played it since, maybe I played it in 2009 or 2010 when we were working on the other ones.
Yeah.
But everything is so handcrafted. Like it has these systems and the systems work really well, but it's like the attention to detail, every single room. Like in my memory, it was just kind of like a lot of generic hallways and rooms, and that wasn't the part that really stood out in my memory. What really stood in my memory was that it was scary, and that, dismemberment and telekinesis and how they work together and all that was really good. But the amount of like attention to detail and also how clean this game is, like as far as bugs and like even the camera, that camera should not work that good.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that camera should work that well, especially from 2008.
The other thing, I forgot how much in the original playthrough I scared myself by accidentally kicking like bodies and stuff. Like
Yes.
when I was playing through this, especially when it was dark, I'd be going through a room and like I'd see something and I'd just like freak out and pull out my plasma cutter, like, oh my God, what's going on? It's like, oh, I kicked a body. That's
And with
all
the
it was.
bodies, the thing about that immediately, it's like the beginning of the game, the pacing is so well done, and they're doing like, they'll do a body drop and they'll do a body drop that reanimates. And within 5 minutes, like if I see a corpse, I'm pre-cutting off limbs of corpses.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like this disgusting human going through this, like no respect for corpses. I'm assuming immediately everything is bad within minutes of playing this game.
I mean, there's that kind of like beautiful beat of like you see the I don't know the name of the enemy, but the one that like transforms corpses into necromorphs.
Yeah, the
you know?
flying pterodactyl thingy.
Yeah, that's
And then
the-
and so like once you know that can happen, every corpse is just like a threat, and you're like, I can get around this if I just like completely destroy this thing. And it is a thing that I really like with this game, which is like it gives you a reason to do a disgusting horror-y type thing. You know, that it's not just like, I'm not just doing this because I'm gross. I'm doing it because there's like a strategic advantage, but it's still so gross.
Yeah.
Well, I also forgot that. So in Dead Space, I guess we introduced this in 2. I thought it was from 1, but maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure. Like, you have to stomp on the bodies for the loot to fall out in 2. And so, like,
Yeah, that's a difference.
Yeah.
you go in there and stomp on the bodies, right? We just ended up leaning into that more because it ended up being so weirdly awesome, right?
Yeah, it is
Well,
weird.
it's like the grunt and the animation feels good. It's really powerful, and it's like, yeah, if you get a reward from that, hell yeah, I'll stomp on some boxes.
yeah, Joe Kovchinsky wrote in just saying, the stomp. Yep, we got it. But I like the...
Musical?
Yeah, he's really into stomp. But no, like even with the first bench where it says cut off your limbs then, I feel like they're training you to defile human corpses by having a human being right below it. It's like, I guess I'll test out some moves here. So I do a quick stomp and like the human's head flies off, and with these wacky physics, it's just all over the place. And I couldn't see Isaac's face at the time, but I hope he was like, Jesus Christ, what have I become? Just immediately like boarding the ship and then just ripping off a human head with my foot minutes later.
I wanna go back to we moved on from the Ishimura and sound design, but there is this part that I realized while playing through it again. The first time you get stasis, and the first thing you have to do with stasis is like there's a door that's slamming, and you have to slow it down. And I realized when I came upon it, it's like, for me, that's the sound of Dead Space, is that door slamming, that it's like,
Yes.
and you can hear it like rooms and rooms away. Like, you know, you go through it and you can hear it behind you, and then you have to walk back and you're like, oh, there's that door again. And it's just like, it's amazing what a specific sound like that is just like implanted in my memory.
Well, and I was going to say there are two things, like the two sounds that scare me the most is that just because I think it taps into that, oh my God, I can't put my hand out of this elevator because what if the doors close fear that Resident Evil also tapped into in the movies. I don't like automatic doors. It's very weird, but that sound is so like visceral almost. But the other sound, and actually when I am at my most anxious and scared, is whenever you enter one of the vacuums, or when all of the air gets sucked out at one moment. Like that I don't even know how to describe it, but those specific moments where it transitions you into a completely other world because you're, you know, it forces you to look at different things. Like I can handle pretty much all of Dead Space, but like my heart gets racing when I have to watch my air. My heart gets racing when I hear the sound just drop and like pull out. Like I think those, and it doesn't mean that like anything else is like not scary or visceral, but like those moments just tap into like those very, very like scary, oh my God, space is always going to kill you, but like also monsters will kill you moments.
Oh yeah. Like one of the biggest jump scares in the first half of the game for me is, you know, you're doing standard Dead Space objective of go over here, hit some switch, do something, head on back, and heading back through that zero-G outside space area. And I think that's the first time that there's a necromorph out there, and just that moment of like opening the door and it's like, Jesus Christ, you can be out here? I hadn't even considered that was a possibility. And it's such a good moment.
And they also do, it's like, it's almost cheesy, but it works so well as like, you can see exactly how long you have left in your air meter, but Isaac sounds like he's asphyxiating at like 45 seconds left, you know, and so you feel like you're about to run out, even though you can see exactly how much time you have. They really kind of play it up.
Yeah, it feels like if he was just like, you know, diving to the bottom of a pool, he'd be panicking halfway down. He just cannot handle holding his breath. But it's true. For like a character without a voice in the game, you really get to hear the most intimate level of a voice he has, which is him gasping for breath at 40 seconds. It's just absurd. David submitted a comment on Patreon saying, mirroring what Kate was saying, my favorite parts, though, are when suddenly they throw the atmosphere away and you're out struggling along a breached portion of the ship and the enemies make no noise at all out here. The game has been a masterpiece to play thus far. And Will Parlett submitted a comment on Patreon saying, what I found scary was being in outer space with no sound, not knowing that there's a creature behind you. That is compelling horror.
I also think I tried to go into this one. I was like, haha, I know that things pop out in front of me. So I'm going to keep my back to the wall at all times in this game. I got nope, they come out the vents. Forgot that they came out the vents. Like,
and for jump scares, it's still so effective so many times with this stuff. Even like the little moment pretty early on when you can kind of see there's a hole in the siding over here and you see that original Xbox looking treasure chest on the other side. And so I ran up to it just to see, like, can I bust through this anyway? And then when you walk up to that, they have the necromorph run by the other side of it. It's like, God, every turn there's just something jumping at me. But
except when you think there's going to be something jumping.
Right.
That's the thing, is like they're really good, or they do like a setup and then pay that setup off later, but then not pay that setup off when you think they're going to pay it off. It's really good. I mean, I played late at night with the lights off, but I was like legitimately scared playing the game. And I know how it works. You know?
Yeah, I'm a big old baby when it comes to scary stuff. I've been playing without headphones and mainly during the day. And it's scary, but it wasn't until I started reading so many of these comments, like Nick from Atlanta and GMAX Thurin, they're both like, forget this. It's the scariest thing in the world. And I haven't had a moment where I was genuinely terrified to keep playing. So I think it's hitting that right level for me, but that's probably because of my very specific baby conditions here.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like, to me, obviously, I've played this game several times, and so that's kind of like lessened it. But like, it's the gameplay is so kind of tight and systems heavy that to me that actually makes it a little less scary, just because I now have down to such a science how it's like, look, 2 shots in the leg, 2 shots in the arm, like they're going down. And maybe that is just because I've like played it for so long, but it's like I feel like I've got it now in a way that, you know, makes me feel like I have more control over the system than maybe, you know, anyone ever does on their first playthrough.
So I think like to the opposite of that is like, there's a reason I ran around with a shotgun and a shield in Call of Duty. I can't aim. I don't aim for anything. So for me, it had the exact opposite effect. I played it through multiple times, like when it first came out, but then jumping into it again, I was like, I know exactly what I need to do. This is going to be easy. And then I miss that first shot to clip a leg. And then I go into like panic, like, oh my God, I got to get the other one. And then it's just like, and your clip's gone. You better hope that really janky melee works, because it's right there. And like, so I actually had the opposite, where like, and I wouldn't necessarily say scared, but like it initiated a panic in me because I couldn't just like shoot the center of mass. Like I knew I needed to cut the limbs, but I suck at shooting.
Yeah.
So
it honestly wasn't until like reading people's comments and on Twitter and everybody talking about cutting off the legs where I realized, boy, I've really been doing it wrong. I've been going for like the upper limbs every time. And I should have known, like the game is so Resident Evil 4, I should know that like, okay, you pop them in the legs first to down them. I don't know why I'm going for the stupid dangly swinging arms all the time. I love the early necromorphs. They have like a jaunty rhythm. They're like excited to come out and play to you compared to later on when there's like rushing towards you like maniacs. But okay, so go for the legs. That's number 1 gameplay tip here.
yeah, and use the line gun.
Is that kind of like
play with plasma cutter only?
Ooh, I like that.
Plasma cutter only.
So plasma cutter only is great, but also when you suck at aiming, use the line gun.
I also suck at aiming, and there was a point when we were working on the other ones where I had all the mechanics down, but it's been that long, and I'm struggling. I'm finishing chapters, barely any ammo, like barely any life, like, you know, I have money I can like restore for the next chapter, but I'm not, you know, dominating this game by any means.
It makes me feel better.
The plasma cutter is also, it's so good that it doesn't feel like you're like handicapping yourself. It's not like I'm only going to play with this. It's like, no, it is the most versatile, like maybe best gun in the game and you will get the most ammo. Yeah, it rules.
Question: do you all just use the standard shot, or do you switch it to the horizontal one? Because I switch it to horizontal all the time.
I do it all the time.
You gotta go back and forth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's situation dependent.
Like, sometimes the leapers will be on the wall.
Totally.
And they'll,
Oh, that's fair.
Out,
Yeah.
and then you want this shot. It just depends.
Maybe that's why I suck.
Yeah.
It really was like a moment where it clicked for me with the gameplay of having a necromorph in front of me, shooting him, and then the leaper on the side with the tentacles coming out the side. And it was just like this beautiful moment of, okay, horizontal on the side, switch to vertical, fire over here. And it took them both out. And it's like, okay, this is the Dead Space feel. All right, I feel like I'm finally cool. I finally caught up with 2008 cool people now.
I mean, there's some people that are amazing at it. And they're using, and you can do it in this game, but it doesn't work as well as in the later games where you can like cut off a limb and the arm is one shot and then it has a spike on the end. You can grab that spike, you can throw the spike back at them.
What?
Cut off like another, you can like weaponize and you can be you should be grabbing things in the environment and throwing them.
It's really interesting because I just played through Dead Space 2 like 20 times because I just made a video on it. And that's like the gameplay mechanic of that game. It's like you can't make it through if you don't do that. And in this, it's like it's pretty slow, like just your kinesis module. And so it's like it's much harder to pull off consistently, but then it still feels really cool when you are able to do something with it.
I've really not been using that too much. I had one moment where
I haven't either.
Okay, good. There's I'm glad I'm not alone. But there's the freaky guys in the walls that shoot out the little Wampeters with the tall thing coming out the top. And it was really like a stupid eureka moment of like, God, I really want to hit that guy with that explosive red barrel, but that's on the other side of the room. I don't know what to do. And it was really like, good job game designers having that moment of like, oh, that's right. I can pick this up and walk that over around the corner and then just annihilate this stupid wall guy. And it's such a nice feeling. And I feel like the game is constantly trying to remind you to use these powers. I mean, there's those stasis recharge areas everywhere. And it wasn't until like chapter 3 that I was feeling a little bit loose about, okay, now I can actually slow these guys down. Because I've really been trying to go just dry vanilla throughout this thing up till then.
For me, and I guess because it's been so long, like I keep treating stasis as like this very like small resource and I didn't want to waste it on anything. And I think it's because the meter's right there. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try and handle this. And I think it's the start of chapter 2 where you go into like the med area and you just get like it's like the first time you encounter just like a lot of necromorphs at one time. And I did it all without using stasis and I almost died. Like I don't know how I got out. I did. But after I was like, oh man, I really should have used stasis because there's a refill center right there.
They want you to use it so badly. So if you're only using the plasma cutter, is that really like a really viable run? Because they'll only give you ammo for the plasma cutter then and they'll just swarm you with it?
Get other ammo still. You have to sell it off.
But not as much, and then you can get money for it. And I mean, most importantly, you can put all your nodes into it. Like you can focus all your upgrade materials on that one gun, and so then it reloads super fast and it holds like 20 shots, and it can, it's still good to play with the other ones, I think, but it's like, it is totally viable.
At this point, not even necessarily, I didn't go into it like thinking, I'm going to do this run. There is an achievement for playing it with just the plasma cutter, but I'm halfway through the game and I haven't bought any other guns. And I'm like, I don't think I want to. I'm just like, I put every power node into my plasma cutter. Like it just feels so good, Okay,
is there like an ideal set? I mean, I don't know if that is effectively the best way you can go is just plasma cutter, but does everybody kind of have like an ideal loadout that you should stick with here?
I mean, like a shotgun, right? Like that was my other use.
Mine was line gun plasma cutter.
There kind of. There's a gun called the Force gun, I think, that's more of a shotgun because it's close range. Line gun fires a really wide beam that goes through multiple enemies. And so if you can like line up 3 people in a row, and it's wide enough that it will cut off like both of their legs, and so you can really get a lot of bang for your buck, but it's slow.
Is the pulse rifle worth it? I mean, it seems like it's doing a lot, but it seems like it's just, if you like aliens, you can use this thing. But realistically, like it's not what this game is about.
There are sometimes when there are like a bunch of little enemies that it's good, like there are those little swarms of things that like crawl on the ground.
Right.
And it's good for those, but it's like, it's not better at cutting off limbs than anything else, and what you should be doing is cutting off limbs. And so, like, that's where it kind of falls down.
Okay. And that one, is it the Ripper? What's that one called? Where it's just kind of like the big, like, blast of air almost. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think that's the Force gun.
That's the Force gun. The Ripper is the like saw blade.
Okay, the Ripper I don't have yet. Is the Ripper mandatory? I'm trying to lock down my loadout here, but it seems like it's just whatever you want.
It's fun. It's fun.
Okay, I'll at least try it here. Let's see. We have, who is it? J-Rez submits a comment on Patreon, says, am I using it wrong or is the flamethrower just bad compared to other weapons? I've really enjoyed revisiting this gem though. Still a lot of fun. Yeah, I was using it for a while. I thought it was going to be perfect for those little baby boys on the ground. And then like it didn't seem like it was the weapon of choice to really take care of those suckers. I feel like it's just there for like a thing reference. And that's mainly what they're going for.
I mean, this might be a controversial opinion, but in general, I don't find flame guns in video games satisfying to use in it.
Same.
Like I just don't. They feel they slow you down a lot. They kind of like you just have to hold it against an enemy. So you're just kind of standing there. I never find it enjoyable in general.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. The ammo is always so wildly different. It's taking up a lot of inventory space. Yeah, I guess I can see that. All right. So don't use that.
I'm not a fan of the flamethrower. No.
It's not great. I mean, it's like really, I feel like just in a game with like ammo economy as tight as this one, anything that's kind of like rapid fire, it is just not that great. You know, it's like you can use them in situations, but you really want those like single powerful shots that you get a lot of.
It's funny to me, Hanson, that you say a thing reference.
Yeah.
It's Alien, man. It's like, like there's the flamethrower in the tunnels with the xenomorph.
Yeah, to be fair though, I've seen The Thing like 20 times and I've seen Aliens maybe 3 times.
I mean, the
don't know.
Ishimura is like, I don't remember the ship from Alien, but I mean,
Nostromo. Yeah.
The Stromo.
Yeah.
there you go.
Very, very
Yeah.
clearly inspired.
I actually think that like I genuinely think that Dead Space is the confluence of every type of space horror that existed up until 2008. Like I think that that's what makes it amazing. And it's funny because I was telling my husband, I was like, you know, I got all the Alien stuff when I first played through it. I got like the Thing stuff with how like the necromorphs are, you know, designed. But I totally like I spaced on the Event Horizon stuff, and I'm pretty sure. And Sunshine came out after, I believe. I think it came out. But like
that was probably
this game reminds me of Sunshine and Event Horizon the most. But I think it's because I'm so focused. I'm so keyed in on atmospheric horror now in a way that I haven't been before. And then of course, like the religious aspects and stuff like that, like it makes me think of Sunshine and Event Horizon over thinking about the other ones.
That guy from Sunshine who just has this like that religious epiphany staring at the sun. Like I could totally see myself running into that guy on the Ishimura.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like I
And
probably
talking to me
did.
behind a glass about why, you know,
Yep.
humanity is
Just for the
doomed,
record, Glenn Schofield in that Ars Technica video said, yeah, it's like Event Horizon, that's what I want it to be like. He just kind of like pointed at it and was like, that's the thing.
And I'm not bashing Dead Space for this, but it is interesting that playing it is so clearly a love letter to so much sci-fi horror that came before it. And now in the game industry, everybody looks back and it's like, why don't they make original ideas like Dead Space anymore? Like as time has gone on, it's just become Dead Space has become more of like this original iconic thing of gaming compared to when it came out and everyone's like, okay, we get your references, buddy.
I will say though, I do think that like being an original IP, but also taking like the foundations of sci-fi horror into it. Like, I do think that it is an original thing in that like there's a difference between getting to play through the spaceship haunted house and just watching it. Like, I have so much more love now than I did before getting to revisit it with like my larger knowledge of sci-fi horror now, which I didn't have at the time.
Yeah.
I think the unitology angle is also like really set apart. Like that's one of the, I mean, this is maybe a change of topic, but that's actually one of the things that I find like really engaging about the game that I wasn't seeing a lot and still don't see much these days is like an examination of like religion and zealotry and like how that can be a problem, you know?
Yep.
Now, as far as I know, Kyle, unitology was just something that was referenced once, I think, in an audio tape. That's all I know about it, to be fair.
You might learn a little more.
Oh, interesting.
No, that's
Google.
that's not totally true.
Oh,
because
really?
you have like there are those number of scenes in, I think, when you're going through like the greenhouse where you're like talking to that guy, or that guy behind the glass is talking to you. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's making direct references to unitology.
He's
Yeah,
talking.
and then like I think like one of the second tapes. Oh, go ahead.
I don't think he says unitology yet,
Yeah.
though. Like, I think you still have to put that together. He's very clearly like religious, and he's saying
Right.
like, this is God's next, this is going to replace humanity. It's better.
I'm going to
It's
bring
like,
him back to Earth and all that stuff, but not
I don't
saying.
think he's fully dipped into the like,
Right.
I'm a unitologist. All men
No,
be
yeah.
praised.
Yeah.
It's more like dancing around like, what is the marker? What is
Right.
this thing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That is some icon of some this future religion that has popped up. It's like, but they don't know what it is. They just know it's important, and they're treating it as some the religious artifact that's supremely important. And it's like, yeah, that's
I am so like my background outside of like doing like pop culture criticism and stuff is like I actually have a PhD in religion or master's in religious studies,
Jesus.
ABD in religious studies for
Nice.
PhD.
That's right,
track.
Ben, and others.
But what I really loved about this, and I think coming back, because I played this when I was still in undergrad, not when I was, doing my master's work or my doctoral work. And going back and playing it, like that religious element and is something that I appreciate so much more. It's what made me appreciate Sunshine and Event Horizon so much more as well. But I think one of the beautiful things with space horror is that it opens the kind of the floodgates to examine like cargo cults. And we don't know what a cargo cult is. It's the idea that you have an island, people are sequestered from everything else, and a piece of cargo comes on shore. Nobody knows what that cargo is, where that cargo comes from. And so they then create a backstory for the cargo. The cargo becomes a religion and that sort of thing. And that's how cargo cults are kind of formed. You find something that is outside and you don't have a lot of reason for it, and then humans attribute reason to it, and then from that reason you then breed a religion. And I think that there's this beautiful examination of one, how humanity latches onto things to form systems like that, but also just like how scary it is, where it's like, okay, yeah, people creating their own religions like on Earth is kind of scary, but like also aliens are a thing. So like maybe it's even worse in space. That was a long way to say I appreciated it. But.
No, I'm with you. Like, it does freak me out a little bit more when instead of the graffiti just being like, these zombies eat your brains, look out, when they're all like, God shall save us. Like, that adds like a weird layer of just fear and kind of, I don't know, it brings into another realm, which is, I don't know, more primal or something in my
And
bones.
something that I had forgot that's really going on a lot in the early chapters of this game is like you do run into a lot of just crazy people, quote unquote, and it's like more than you do in Dead Space 2, at least. Like, they're just kind of like people standing around
Yes.
doing
The dude-
unhinged things. The
The
dude
dude
who's
who hits his head on the thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is another sound that sticks in my memory from this game. And then it's like, yeah, you'll find people like operating on people who are definitely not alive anymore, and like all sorts of stuff. And I was kind of at the beginning, I was just like, is it just people are crazy because it's a horror game? But then you can find those files that's like, more and more people have started acting in irrational ways. We don't know why it's happening, but it's definitely a pattern.
Travis Morgan says, the moments where you come across other humans that wait for you to show up before dying are especially scary to me. The corpse hitting its head against the wall, the doctor that slits her own throat. Like, oh, that one, oof, that was rough.
That was a lot.
Yeah, another robot brings up, that like the guy, the scientist that's choking on his own vomit when entering the room. And he says, naturally, I walk over to him and watch as he asphyxiates and dies. Little did I know a necromorph had burst through a vent behind me and begins attacking me. I knew this was a horror game and I expected there to be jump scares. What I didn't expect was to be trolled in this twisted manner. There's even like a person later on, I think it's like a woman at the end of the hallway that's like screaming or making some weird noise, and then you can't really interact with her. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like I ran over there waiting for like, oh, is this going to be a cutscene or not a cutscene, but I guess some sort of dialogue. And it's just like, you can't shoot her. She just stands
like
there.
You're not even there. They're like in some
right
crazy psychosis, which they slowly layer in, right? That's the other thing about the game is you have that weird message from Nicole in the beginning, but it's not laying out what's going on.
Right.
So it's like, hey, we're here to repair the ship. Uh-oh, something's up. Uh-oh. And by the time the religious stuff starts coming in, right? And I think maybe the other cool thing about it, I think, is like there's just these layers where you don't have to dig in on that stuff. The mechanics are really good. You can just like enjoy the jump scares and play the game. But they do a really good job of like continually layering in that stuff as it goes.
And God, I forget the details of exactly how they frame it, but they at some point, Kendra kind of deflates the idea that it's as simple as they brought something on board the ship and now they're all turning. She said something, Jacob, I'm counting on you to remember exactly what she says. There's something along the lines of like, it's disconnected or it started before that, or there was something.
Chapter 3, when all of a sudden they're locking doors. She's like, oh, somebody else is like locking the doors. This
right.
isn't just like she sees that like, oh, and it ends up being, what's the guy's name? Mercer, the guy, the hunter inventor guy behind the glass.
Right. Yeah, maybe that's what she was getting at.
I do want to like point out too, like I think the use of glass and spacing is also really good, because the thing with horror is, especially when there are other characters involved other than like your protagonist who you are, horror is about building a connection on empathy. You're supposed to feel for the other people in the party. You're supposed to feel for the character that you're supposed to be representing. And the ability to feel and connect is what makes us really scared. When you put a pane of glass or put somebody on another part of a tram track and you can't do anything to save or act, or that like instilled sense of helplessness just pushes that dread up more. Because at least for me, because it's the fact that like the game is showing you, or, you know, in a horror movie's case, the director is showing you and the main character, you have no control. You have control, and maybe the 6 feet in front of you and to your sides, probably not to your back because there's probably a necromorph behind you. But like there is something else that is controlling everything. And that sense of feeling really small and helpless is something that like I really appreciated this playthrough. Yeah. And like something they do very well.
And I wonder, I mean, it's, yes, something else is in control here, but if you really want to zoom in and make it practical, it's the game developers, right, Zach, being like, okay, we need to put a plate of glass here because we cannot have you interact and like save this person because canonically they need to die. So that's the reason for those glass tropes of people being like, help me, please. Blah.
I think part of it, probably a big part of it, is the decision to not have any cuts, right? And so you're not gonna have cut scenes, but you still want to have these like little story moments that you can't have the player. Because I'll be honest, like, and they don't let you shoot the other, you know, like you can't shoot Hammond when you. I would shoot everybody at this point. Like I'm not waiting to see, you know, like sorry, but like your arms are coming off.
You're firing at the video screen in front of you as you're walking around. Yeah.
I do. While we're talking about these human scenes, I was just obsessed with on this playthrough the tech of the. You know, not only that you have the screen that pops up in front of you that shows them talking to you, which is awesome, but also that you can see clearly in cutscenes. There are scenes where you both have the screen where they're talking to you, but you can also see them in kind of physical space doing it, and they're like holding a thing, essentially kind of like FaceTiming you. And the crazy thing is that this was made in 2008, and so like FaceTime was not nearly as ubiquitous as it is now, and so they have what we now all understand is like, yeah, they're sending us like a video call and that's what's happening, but like it really kind of called its shot, you know?
I mean, that's like Star Trek, and everybody had the video screens, right?
It's like they do really cool things where you can see Hammond like turn around his camera to show Kendra and stuff, and it's the kind of thing. Ben, you'll know about this in Metal Gear Solid 4. You know, when there are those mission briefings and you can drive the little robot around,
right?
And it's like, wow, this is actually happening. It's not just like a cutscene.
Yeah,
like it kind of felt like that for me, where it felt so much more real because you could see them filming themselves.
Yeah,
it felt like found footage. Like that's what it felt. It felt like found footage horror. That's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah, totally. Jared B jumps in and says, playing this with my wife who doesn't play games, she is super annoyed that Isaac doesn't talk. There's so many times when some basic communication would be more immersive than a silent protagonist.
I think it's that is one of the main things that really show the age of the game to me, is Isaac not talking in just situations where Hammond and Kendra are talking to you. They're asking you questions. You know, and I know that they were very vocal about it being like Half-Life was a big influence, and you know, Gordon Freeman and all that. And he talks later in the other games. I think it's showing its age, that part. It's annoying to me that he doesn't talk. Yeah,
especially when like the core mission for the player, other than, you know, escape the ship, but it's like, hey, we got to go rescue Nicole. And so it's like they want you to care about this emotionally, but when half of it is just, I can't talk. What am I talking about?
One there, and he knows more than, you know, you see everything, like, and
right.
Like, he's gonna run into that guy, and not, you know,
just explain
have
exactly
some
what's
things
going
to say to the people he's with, right?
I mean, but I guess Kyle is just Link and Zelda, I guess, if he's going after this person and then he doesn't say a word.
I mean, it's just about letting. The idea has always been to just let the player fully take over the character by not giving them a voice. You know, you give them their inner monologue. But it's not that effective. I definitely think Isaac is more interesting in the follow-ups when he has things to say and he is traumatized by the events of this game, and he, you know, has issues with relationships and stuff, and you know, like I'm with you, Zach. It makes it show its age a little bit.
I wish he would have talked in this game, and then he doesn't talk in 2 because he's so traumatized.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, he just kind of quivers. I mean, do you remember being in those discussions about, okay, with the second one, we got to do it. We got to actually open this up.
It was decided. Like I was not. I hooked up the subtitles for all the things he said.
all right, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, no, that was not my decision, but I agree with the decision. Yeah, I wanted to hear.
Well, but when you were doing the subtitles, you were like, "Yeah, I'm glad I'm typing out these words." That means he's saying stuff.
I mean, I've done subtitles for a lot of games, and at Visceral EA Redwood Shores, that the tech we used was like the subtitles. You had to like stopwatch out how long things took. It sucked. It was a really bad system, and I did it for many games there because I knew how to do it. And I will definitely say that the happiest I was doing them was Dead Space 2 because the game was so awesome.
Right? Oh yeah.
By the way, thanks for doing that. I always turn on subtitles. It's an appreciated
good subtitle work. Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, I do like that. A lot of times with speaking horror game protagonists, you have the problem of them either being too scared or not scared enough, or like in Resident Evil 8,
totally,
Ethan will like see a giant guy turn into a fish, and then he'll see a tree and be like, what the hell's up with that tree? You know? It's like I do like that Isaac screams when he gets like hit, and there are like times that he vocally reacts, but I haven't had the feeling in this where it's like he's doing something different than what I would do, which can really take me out of it. So like, you know, for that reason, I do kind of appreciate that he doesn't talk. But I agree that, I mean, 2 is just kind of a superior experience overall.
Yeah, I think it just goes down to like the writing and the timing for everything. And I think when you have something that isn't necessarily super open world, it lets you have a position where like you can time out everything very well versus like mishaps of when somebody says something scary. I also have always found, because I've seen a few horror films where like the protagonist they're pretty silent, but I've always found, and it's a trope in slashers, you have like slashers are silent. Half of it is from like Italian giallo, where you're not supposed to know like who it is and like who it could be because they can't give away the gender and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But the other half of it is that like we map our fears onto the things that are trying to kill us. And so if we do that, it increases the mystery and the horror. I but when it comes for protagonists to me, like I want to know what they're feeling. I want to know how they're responding. Like that helps me get more immersed than just hearing him go, ugh, all the time. So
Yeah. Well, Chris Logan has an interesting take here.
I wonder if he'll talk in the remaster.
The remake. Yeah, that's a good question.
That would be a huge change.
Well, but
Like,
they said they're gonna he's talked now though. At the time when Dead Space came out, he had never talked, but now he's talked. Like it's not that whole thing of he doesn't talk.
it would be funny if every time someone asked him to do something, he was just like, sure. And like that was what he thought.
That's it. Yeah, Zach, do you have thoughts?
I bet he will talk.
I bet he will.
I'll put some money on that.
I bet it's
I think
minimum
he'll talk
stuff.
in the remake.
Yeah. But Zach,
It's hard to see like a AAA game where the protagonist doesn't talk, like in 2022 or 23, or whenever it's going to come out.
And the Demon
Unless
Souls
you're a
remake
Nintendo game, right?
just came out, don't talk in that. But
Yeah.
That's not like a
no
defined
one talks.
character,
Talking
though.
about. That's true.
but yeah, what were your thoughts on the remake overall, Zach? Was it a surprise to you when they announced it? Or when I guess the press leaked
I
it?
heard of it because I know people that work there.
Oh.
I knew that they were doing it. Yeah, I'm excited to play it. It'll be interesting to see. I'm definitely playing it now. I'm kind of like, this is a really good game. Like there's lots of other games in the old EA catalog I could point to that could really use a remake. Whereas this one is like, man, it's a really good game still.
It looks good still. I really don't have a
Surprisingly.
problem with the graphics at all.
The controls kind of really suck, but that's also just because I almost have arthritis now, and I didn't have that all the way back then. So being able to remap my controls is something that I really need in games.
Yeah.
And so that here, it wasn't too much of a problem because the Xbox controller is very ergonomic. But if it is going to be something that is on multiple systems with the different controllers and stuff, you have to allow people to remap it because so it hurts.
Yeah.
I can only play 3 rounds of Mario Kart before my hands start hurting.
Jesus.
And I gotta be okay, sorry guys, gotta put that down. So that's actually something that I'm hoping the remake will do is kind of make it more accessible for folks in those areas and allow more options just on the the subtitle area, increasing sizes and stuff like that. But overall, I'm usually the person who's why the hell are we getting another remake? Why do I need this 90s game on my Xbox X1, whatever the hell it's called? I have it. It's back there. It escapes me now.
No one knows.
But I'm usually the curmudgeon because I'm just I want new things and I want people to be able to write and make new stories, especially that are more diverse. But when Dead Space remake was announced, I was just happy and excited and just oh my God.
Yeah.
But then Zach said, I started playing this one and I was oh, wait, this is actually still really good the way that it is now. I actually don't think it needs a remake.
Surprised at how well it holds up, and I'm playing it on PC at 60 frames, but man, there's a lot and don't get me wrong, I'd love to take a crack at, hey, remake this game. Oh, okay, sure, that I'll tell you what, the first thing I'm gonna do is redo that asteroid sequence. I've got a lot of things that I would do differently, but yeah,
Isaac will talk. Asteroids are going to be harder this time. That's what I'm calling right now.
And he'll say stuff like, "What's with these asteroids?" Fun dialogue like that. Yeah,
I'm kicking asteroid.
Great.
Oh God,
you got a job at EA
Something
Motive,
that
kid.
I'm really curious about is I'm not speaking from any knowledge here other than just kind of rumors of gameplay improvements, but it's the zero-G sequences very different in this game than in Dead Space 2, and they're clearly designed. In Dead Space 2, you have full free 3D movement. You can fly around, you have a jetpack, and in this, you just have to do these long jumps. And I like those a lot. I mean, clearly that's, the environments are designed for you to be moving like that or whatever. But that's something that I think I kind of heard oh, maybe that'll be a gameplay update or whatever. And that's one of these things that it's technically maybe it's more primitive, but I love this period where you're just unable to do anything in zero-G and you're just kind of floating towards the next destination. It's really cool. I love those sections.
It's real scary because it makes you helpless.
Yes, and we were talking about these movies or whatever. a show I recently watched, The Expanse. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I haven't seen it yet.
The beginning of The Expanse, it's not like all of The Expanse gives me Dead Space vibes, but there are parts of The Expanse that definitely give me Dead Space vibes. A lot of the zero G stuff in The Expanse is that, where they kind of have to make the jump. They're not flying around with like rockets, and so it's like they can push off and then hopefully they catch the thing, and there's like some cool sequences that show where they have to do that or whatever. I really like that mechanic. I like the one in Dead Space 2 as well, but you have to redesign all those rooms. It's like the puzzle is finding the platforms to jump on while finding the switches to turn off the electricity. Like you have to completely redesign those sequences.
So it actually feels a little close to Portal, like the latter half of Portal 2, where you're trying to find something in the distance that you can like pinpoint and jump to, you know?
I remember why I stopped playing the game in the past, and it's that those rooms really make me nauseated. Like I get nauseous really easily, or nauseated, however you're supposed to say it. And like getting into that room again, it's like, okay, let's pop some Dramamine before I have to play Dead Space now, just in case one of these rooms pop up. But like, it works better than I thought for, you know, a pretty ambitious mechanic from 2008, even like that quick little land and then repositioning and stuff, because I'd imagine that's just a nightmare animation wise for like, how is he smoothly going to do any of this? But I think it works okay for the most part.
It's very disorientating, and in the other style where you have the jetpack, you can control, you really understand where you are, and I think that just adds to like the horror, the feeling, all these mechanical things. Even there's some things about the controls that are a little maybe a little clunky by today's standards, but that also adds, like someone said, like, oh, the melee is kind of jank, and it's like, yeah, like, you know, you can't like pinpoint rely. You're not going to do an all melee run and beat the game or whatever, right? And zero G to me is one of those things, because when you land and it does that animation and it pops the camera over, where did I have no idea where I came from.
Right.
I'm out of sorts.
And something that does help that though, so this, like, they stay playable, is the greatest mechanic of all time, your little nav guide that will show you exactly where you need to go, works in zero gravity, and you can kind of look up and see where the line is going. And so there were definitely times when I landed, had no idea where I was, and then used that and was like, oh, okay, I need to go towards that wall.
I mean, I love it. I feel like this game has aged so well because in a lot of ways, especially in the early sections, it is a pretty generous game, especially when it comes to navigation. Like that guide alone has added years to this game's life. And I'm trying to remember, was there any backlash back in the day about like, baby game, come on, don't even put that as an option?
Most people played it. It's like, the thing that you realize that's not, there are similar games in terms of level design, like games like BioShock, right? It's like a similar level design where you're going in and coming back and hitting stores, going in and coming back. And part of the gameplay there is like remembering which way it was and figuring it out. That's just not what this game is. And so maybe you would see it and think that, but then you're going to have that moment where you hit the thing, the blue line sends you to the door, and you go, I don't want to go through that door. And you realize like that the figuring out where to go that's not the problem.
Right. It's just,
and it's so beautifully in universe. I mean, BioShock has a big floating arrow. Like a BioShock will tell you like, go that way. And so to like, I think attaching it so clearly to like, this is a tool that the character is using makes it feel much less like a tutorial. Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely immersive. And I think like one of the things that I like about it is to Zach's point of like, and everybody's point really of it being a part of the game and the world, and like the remembering where you came from isn't really a part of it. Like, I think that's actually really important, because in a way it's your safety blanket in that, okay, I know that I have to go this way. It's fine. I can ignore these other things. And it kind of like allows you to feel safe for a little bit, which I think is actually really important in horror. Like, you have to give people like pockets of like, okay, I'm grounded, I'm understanding what's happening, let's go. And then you go through the door and something jumps out at you, and it takes it all away. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about having something so beautifully in universe guiding you and giving you that like kind of a false sense of hope. Like, okay, I just need to go here, that's it. And then it rips it all out from under you, like in a really good way.
Oh yeah. So the objective marker is amazing. The map, every time I've tried to use it, it's like I don't even want to look at this thing.
I want to talk. I was just going to ask, can we please talk about the map?
What do you think of
anybody use
it?
the map?
No.
No.
Can't.
I think the
use it
map
once
is super cool.
Really?
Like the way you move around. Once you figure out how it works, I think it's awesome. It's also like you have no reason to use it. I was messing around with it last night and just wondering like this must have been really easy to do, and it just happened to be that cool. I hope they didn't spend a bunch of time on this thing because no one uses this thing. But it's actually really cool because it's fully 3D and you can rotate the camera completely around, and you will see, like, to your guys' point earlier about like, man, the Ishimura is a full, like, they basically 3D modeled a ship and then put a game in there, you know?
Right.
You see how, like, you know, like the hydroponics level, you see the full layout and why things are where they are and how it all like would feed into each other, and it like makes sense in like a very real way.
Curious if it's possible that the nav guide thing was like a late addition. You know, if at some point they intended for you to be looking at the map screen much more kind of in a more like Metroid Prime-y way, and then they decided, you know, this will help flow better.
Right.
But they already built this beautiful map, and so that's why they, you know, it's still in there.
For sure, but I would bet that you're right. That it was like, hey, they just figured out at some point, like, we want to keep the pace. And if the player is like going back and forth trying to figure out, oh, where was I supposed to go? It's like, that's not letting them keep the pace they want to keep, right?
It all goes hand in hand with like no cinematics and like everything being given to you while you're moving through the world. Like everything is to keep you moving. And it kind of like, it makes sense, right? Because like if you're Isaac and you're on this ship with a whole bunch of things that want to kill you, you're not going to just stand in place and listen to like look at a map. You're just going to keep moving and hope that you're going in the right direction because you know it was bad back there.
Yeah, and even like small things I love about just the way his head will move a little bit when you're going through your items. It's just like the small thing, like he's checking out like, okay, large med pack, that'll settle me for a while, but I should probably sell these things over here. It's so cool. Yeah. There isn't a fast way to use the med packs, is there? Are you guys also?
Yeah, X.
Yeah.
X.
I'm sorry, you just hit X during the game?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, you
aiming when you hit it.
Think about reloading a gun and then you get extra health is what you do.
Oh my God, I completely forgot that. So I found like I'm walking around like a goober, like doing a boss fight, like running and trying to navigate the menu with these claw grips, trying to, okay, Jesus Christ,
oh my
I'm
God,
blowing
no,
it.
you're playing it wrong,
Oh
man.
no.
So I will say, and I really do want to know if the control design and my whole, like, I do think that you should have remappable controls, but I do think that the way everything is really just like one wrong move and you use your health pack when you meant to reload.
Oh, sure.
One wrong thing and you use your stasis instead of using your kinesis. Like, and when you're in a situation, like obviously I'm a panic player and I like being scared, but I also get very scared. And so when I'm having like a boss fight and like I'm trying to remember where everything is, like by the end of the game, it's muscle memory. But when you're first starting out, it is very much accidentally or it was for me, accidentally using things or not holding down the right button. And then even just to sprint, like I can't just hold down the left stick. I have to hold the bumper and move the left stick. Like those little things, like as much as I do think you should be able to remap from an accessibility standpoint, I do also think that like controller design here also helps heighten that intensity when you're in these spaces of trying to run around. Because like if I think about a game like The Medium or like any other horror game where you have to run down an aisle away from something, it's easy. Hit the left stick and go. Here, if you hit the left stick and go and you forgot to pull in the bumper, you're not running that fast and it's probably going to get you.
Right, right. Yeah, you got to get back in that groove. I do think the controls have aged pretty well, except for the no quick turn thing is mind-boggling to me. Like, after Resident Evil 4, and a game so clearly inspired by Resident Evil 4 in so many ways, like, it just feels like, am I missing something? Is it really not in this game? Because it really feels like it should be right there.
I thought of me like double tapping A and double tapping back. I'm like, surely this is in there.
There has to be something.
Is it in
buried
2?
in there.
Jacob, having replayed it recently, can you quick turn in 2?
I think it is. I also have to confess that it's not as big of a deal if you're using a mouse. Like it's easier to kind of turn around, so I use it less. But I agree that I mean there are so many mechanics that clearly come from Resident Evil 4 that not being in there is tough.
Yeah. Okay, other things that are a little bit janky. Did anybody else have trouble with the the electricity, the battery in the wall thing? Was I alone there for like, there's a lot of fidgeting, like,
No,
okay, I think it's in,
hard.
but it's not quite in according to the game. It was just a little jankier on the edges there to the point that I thought it was messing up. But, okay.
Yeah,
There's a
it's
thing-
a little more sticky, right? It should just be a little more sticky when you get in there.
Right.
So it has to be like so precise. Yeah.
There's a thing, I like the ragdolls in this game, but there is definitely the thing of like when you're looking at a live human character who dies, they have this like death sequence and then they kind of go like bleh, and they like wiggle around a little bit when they ragdoll, and it's just like it's often like such a kind of like really tense played out moment, and so then seeing them just kind of like twitch is a little funny.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I don't know if it happened in real life.
I've never
you
seen
done?
a physical body that's dead. Yeah, Prometheus is asking, was there always this much wacky physics? Totally had me cracking up every time I walk through a body and it goes flying and flipping. It kind of killed the spooky mood, but I'm not complaining. It is funny. There's no doubt about it.
There's okay. Also,
line 2008 physics. I'll have you know.
I believe it, man. It's worked out
I
well.
originally tried to play this on PC in like faster than 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
And things started breaking real fast. In the first cutscene, there is this incredible thing where like the tip of Kendra's hair doesn't move, and so when she walks it's like a hair snake that extends behind her, and so there's this thing where it's like 12 feet of hair and it looks like it's gonna like clothesline a guy who walks, and I knocked it back down to 60 and it worked.
Smart.
But it's like
Smart.
Hair
there is stuff
fashion.
like that. Yeah.
Hair fashion in the year 2500 is going to be a lot different.
Gosh, I will say, and this isn't a fault on Dead Space, more of just a me going back and playing older games after what somebody said. So a comic book artist that I follow and we work with, he made a tweet and he was like, it's funny how many like bald black characters there are because people can't draw black hair. And I was like, oh yeah. And then when I was playing here and you see Hammond for the first one, I was like, oh yeah, he's bald. And then I started looking up all the games I used to play. I was like, bald.
Yep.
Which again, like not a critique of the game. It's just something that like you end up realizing. I mean, and hair has always been hard
Yeah.
overall, but it is something that like looking back on older games, like how far we've come with actually like taking the time and like learning how to animate black hair. But that was something that I thought was really interesting. I just kept laughing every time he'd come on screen because I just kept thinking about that tweet.
Oh, yeah. No, it totally checks out. Chris Logan here submits a comment on Patreon saying, given that you play a silent protagonist covered head to toe in armor, I have to imagine immersion was on the dev's mind. For this reason, I wish we didn't see Isaac's face in the opening cutscene, revealing that the hero is just some generic white dude, a mostly minor complaint in an otherwise impressively innovative game. Yeah, it is that weird idea of like, we're supposed to project, but then why show him at all? I don't get it.
My note that I took is like, he looks pretty dopey.
Yeah.
There's a short window to see Isaac's face. He looks kind of dopey. Like he's just kind of like he looks a little more like, I don't know. He looks more normal in 2 and 3, but like in the first one he just, I don't know, and maybe that's on purpose. Like he just kind of looks like an engineer dude, you know, who's like trying to track down his girlfriend.
I will say I love that opening cutscene. Not
Very good.
cutscene, cinematic, whatever, but like I love how long it is and how like the light coming through the ship and whatever. Like it is an introduction.
Yeah.
It sets the tone for the world.
Yeah.
It's
also
My
fun
favorite
to,
part of
like,
that scene is he's talking or he's watching his video and Kendra just rolls up like, watching that again, huh? Like
Making fun of him.
You're gonna like get a text or video message from somebody, it gets projected up. Everyone else can just comment on it. And it's not a normal video message, it's a really weird video message.
that's like some like this element of entertainment and media that takes place in the future. Everyone's like phones are always see-through and everyone can see what's going on.
Right.
Because it's like good for like film, right? Like it's nice to shoot behind someone and still see them within a clear phone, but it's like we're never gonna have that. We're always gonna have it.
Well,
Be very
there's I think it's called Another Life. It's a Netflix sci-fi series, which I recommend to everybody. It's very, very good. First episode drags a bit, but it's very good outside of that. And they have this big room where you can recreate like memories from your life. Like you put essentially your memories into the computer, and the computer will generate it in a hologram, kind of like the holodeck in like Star Trek, but like in a room. But it's like not closed off, so like anybody could walk by and just see what you're doing. I mean, all of the stuff was family friendly, but it is one of those things where it's like, why no privacy for the memory room? I feel like this is a little bit.
You got to keep people from getting too freaky there. I get it. Yeah.
One more thought about the opening cutscene that was like, I didn't get the first time I played it, and like revisiting it now and revisiting it since is like something that really comes through. Is like, the first time I played it, I was over the course of the game that I learned about like the planet cracking sort of endeavor. This company like literally breaks apart planets, and like you don't really learn how that works until later, but like to know that and then see that cutscene and then, or whatever we're going to call it, and see all the pieces of the planet sort of like, you know, in the way, and just like understanding that like what went wrong here is they were trying to break a planet in half, and things kind of got messed up in that process.
Turns out it's not that
really
easy.
Visually interesting.
Yeah, well, she uses the phrase like, looks like they already popped the cork or something, where it's like, they just like pop that planet in half.
Hammond is like really defensive about, right? She says, oh, it's the Ishimura, and he, you know, USG Ishimura, like this is the #1 planet cracker, you know, this saved humanity. And it's got like the cork, this big piece like hanging off of it. I remember when they were making this game, we had this piece of concept art where it was much more like looking up. It looked amazing. And it's odd to me that they came in from the top and didn't show that more, because you do kind of have to like, you don't really necessarily understand that it's got this piece of the planet hanging from it, right?
Yeah.
I think it's what I really appreciated about this, and this is, I think, an obvious Alien influence, is the banality of it all. Like, it all is just kind of boring to them. Like, it's, oh yeah, they popped the cork, they just destroyed another planet, and it doesn't mean anything. Like, it's an everyday occurrence. It's common. It's, you know, and that was something that Alien did really well, in that like future tech wasn't something bright and shiny. It was something grimy and blue collar.
Right.
And I think that that's something that you see here too. And you get to see a lot of like interactions between company, religiosity, and just like everyday working people, and then, you know, and like how it all fits together. And I think that like, one, the blood everywhere it's a lot, and it's very good, but it is one of those things where like the setting of it is like, it's not like white pristine future tech. And I think that is a way that it could have gone. It could have been bright white everywhere, blood splashed on it, but no, it was like, no, this is a working ship, and this working ship is gray and dingy, and then there's also like dark blood on top of it, because it's not like bright, vibrant red blood. It's very, very, it's that dirty feeling that like makes you feel like you're walking into something that like people have lived in for a long time, but it also like helps you go into that like, I swear people are gonna think I'm pretentious as hell, but like it puts you like almost like in this sacred space where it's kind of like you're somewhere where you're not supposed to be. It's settled into what it is. And like, I don't know, it just works really well. Like every piece of that design. And I think that all gets set up in the opening, where you have people talking about like these things, just it's normal. Like it is just their life, versus something like super high tech and like so futuristic that like you feel like it's, you know, everything is special. Yeah.
And just on the note of kind of grounding things, Phil DeGrave submits a comment on Patreon saying, I don't think the credits and store system hold up well. It feels very 360/PS3 game design. It doesn't fit naturally with the lore. Like there are credits and little kiosks all over the Ishimura. I hope the remake fixes this. Isaac is an engineer. He should craft the components he needs. Replace credit drops with materials and have Isaac craft items at workbenches, and then use that to upgrade the rigs and weapons. Oh, Kyle hates it.
I don't agree with that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of that was a Dead Space 3 thing, and I didn't like that part of Dead Space 3.
Also, I mean, and you do craft at workbenches. Like you make stuff at workbenches, but I think, the one part of this that I do find weird is the fact that you can just buy ammo, because that's never been a thing that, like, in Resident Evil 4, you cannot just like buy shotgun shells or whatever.
Right.
And in this you can, and it feels a little weird. But I like going to the store. I like selling stuff. I think having to manage your inventory space works well. And so you're like, do I want to hold this ruby semiconductor that I can sell for a bunch, or do I want another health kit? Like, that's a real decision that you have to make. And so I think even if it stretches believability a little that you can like buy, guns in a vending machine, like, I think it adds a lot to the game design.
Yeah, I think the kiosks themselves aren't a problem because the Ishimura has a tram system. Like, this is like a city.
Right.
It's like a floating city where everybody is living, shopping, doing everything. So the kiosks make sense. The ammo is a little weird. So maybe what the kiosks have doesn't necessarily track. But I think the kiosks themselves, like within a world where like the Ishimura is a contained system, like it makes sense to have somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably get a soda from it and not like plasma cutter ammo, but like it like the kiosk itself doesn't feel out of place to me, at least.
I hear you. Barry Logan Smith.
Also, I mean, there's that idea too of like, it's not really ammo per se.
Plasma cutter.
It's supposed to be a
Oh, that's
tool.
fair.
I mean, you can also buy the like assault rifle ammo.
Yeah, that's also fair.
Yeah, Barry Logan Smith submits a question on Patreon, or a comment saying, the vending machines seen thus far only sell a drink called Sun Cola. In the area where you first find a shop, there's an ad for Sun Cola with the tagline, bring out the sun. My guess is that Sun Cola is loaded with vitamin D to make up for all the workers' lack of direct sunlight while living on the ship. Fun little world building. That's good.
The art team went to town on this game. There's so much of that stuff, and like there's like a little story. It wasn't just like what you just said probably is what it was. Oh yeah, well, they don't get vitamin D. We'll make like, there's always like a little story for everything in this game. The attention to detail is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, what is your read on kind of the key voices for the first Dead Space? Glenn Schofield, number 1, Michael Condrey, just a less talkative number 2. What's your read on that?
Like sometimes the way that works is, it's like a whole team. I wasn't there. It's like really hard to say.
Yeah.
Glenn was definitely like kind of the face of it. I never worked directly for Glenn, but I'm a big fan of Glenn. He was like an awesome, like just a really motivating guy. Dead Space, even though I wasn't on it, I can't get too detailed on it. Like, I do know that like he kind of willed that game into existence. EA wasn't. It got like he had to like really keep pushing it. You have to remember at the time we made licensed game tie-ins. We made Lord of the Rings and James Bond and Godfather games,
right,
and the Simpsons game, and we were EA Redwood Shores. Like, people forget. People say like, oh, Visceral Games made Dead Space. That's not true. Dead Space made Visceral Games. Dead Space was the game that gave us an identity, right? Like that I think is why when we were talking earlier about it has like this certain cred, right? People go, oh yeah, like they're remaking Dead Space, they're doing the right thing, that, good game, it's about the game. A lot of it is because that's true, and my view on it was Glenn, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that there's like a ton of people involved in different ways, and I wasn't there to really understand the dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that, Glenn has said that he wanted to make more Dead Space in his career after this, but then went over to Call of Duty. But I mean, for the Game Informer cover story trip for Call of Duty World War II, like the zombies mode in that game, very much the messaging, and largely from Glenn, was like, this is the Dead Space sequel I've always wanted to make. Like, look at this art team. This is some straight up Dead Space stuff. Isn't this great? And now it's crazy that now he's making Callisto Protocol over there in the PUBG universe, which is now the spiritual successor to Dead Space. And then also there's an actual new Dead Space remake coming. So it's just crazy. The Dead Space lives on.
I don't know him personally. I don't know how this works, but like, if EA is kicking the tires on Dead Space again, and Glenn at some point, whenever, this studio hasn't been around that long that he's at.
Yeah.
It's like, couldn't we have just,
just combine
gotten
them
back together? Like, make something happen here.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I wanna read just because I thought this was so funny. This was from the Game Informer cover story. They were talking about the design of the necromorphs, and he said, Glenn said, initially we'd gotten guys that worked on some of the top stuff in the film industry, like Star Wars, The Matrix, or Men in Black, doing all those creatures. But we stopped working with them because they were giving us something we'd seen before. The look came from our internal team. So I love the idea of like early EA being like, here you go, top film guys. They worked on Star Wars, and then being like, no, thank you.
Yeah, just too conventional stuff. I mean, do you? This is a broad, weird question, Zach, but do you feel like the EA influence on this game? And I know that sounds like a negative thing, but I don't even mean that. But I mean, do you feel like the publisher hand at times kind of softening some edges on this, just with that idea of like, oh, you can buy ammo in the vending machine, or it feels like a generous survival horror game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I don't think. To me, this feels like a game that had an uphill battle. Not a game that corporate EA back in 2008. I don't remember, like maybe The Godfather, which is just before, maybe some James Bond game. That was like the first M-rated game, and then Dead Space came out. We became like the M-rated studio for a while there, but it feels like a game that really, I don't see a lot of like, I've worked on some games with a lot of executive influence.
Yeah. This
game does not seem like it had a lot of meddling.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. And, we've talked about how well it's aged, and I think it's important to go back and look at some games from like 2008 that are great games, no doubt, but you go back to those, it's going to be a rough go. I mean, GTA 4, compare how well this game plays to GTA 4, my God, like Metal Gear Solid 4, as much as I love it, like Clunkzilla, Far Cry 2, which, obviously has its upsides, but also just some really frustrating design there. Even like Fallout 3, that's beloved, I understand that. But yeah, it's just like, for 2008, it is remarkable how forward trending this was.
I mean, it's interesting that I would say the one game that I feel like kind of matches this is Mirror's Edge, which is another EA game. I mean, it's like Mirror's Edge has some corners, but it's like, that game, I have talked about how I still think it's like one of the best looking games ever made. It still plays really well because it plays so different than, everything else that's been released. And it's like, it's this crazy point in time where EA was like, we are going to have two pretty radical new IPs for the new generation. And then seemingly almost immediately kind of backed away from them.
I actually think The Force Unleashed plays pretty well. I replayed through it. I don't care what anybody says. The Force Unleashed games are great. But the mechanics work really well still today. Like the controller or the controls actually hold up, which is something that I think I've started to kind of like, with the beauty that is Xbox Game Pass, I've been going back and playing games that I just haven't played in forever because I have access to now. And there is a long list of things that don't hold up, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, big time.
For sure. Mirror's Edge holds up 100%.
Yeah. And I mean, even just, we just did the deepest dive on Mass Effect not too long ago for the first one. And even with the remaster there, it's a game that it's like, that really could have used the remake, and then Dead Space could have used the remaster. Because I saw some comments that, are echoing what you were saying earlier, Zach, about like, does this really need the remake? It ages so well. And I said, oh, that's nonsense. Of course it does. Going back and playing it, it's like, I kind of just want to see a remaster from this. Yeah. I wonder, though, if the new game is going to take years and years, it'd probably be smart to release a remaster ahead of time, maybe?
Are they going to want to do more Dead Space? There's all these questions now with this, right? Like, are you going to like spin it off in your own direction? Are you going to remake the other ones? Like, why would you remake? If you're going to remake Dead Space 1, it's like, well, the pinnacle of that franchise is 2. Dead Space 2 is the one, I already want Dead Space 2. Now that I'm playing this, I'll probably keep playing. I'm probably going to play Dead Space 2 after this.
Well, as somebody who worked on it,
they could just release Dead Space 2 and when anyone asks if this is a remake, they'll just change the subject and then people will play it and be like, wow,
we changed things.
What an amazing game.
It's a sweet game. Yeah, but what would you want, Zach, from the future Dead Space since you worked on these things?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Good games, more good, good sci-fi horror games, right? I really like sci-fi horror specifically. I think there's something really scary about being out in space. I think specifically everything that everyone here has been saying about how grounded that world is, about how sort of gritty and dirty and real it feels. I just want more of that. My preference would be keep it in like haunted ship type stuff. I think going down to the planets is hard to like keep that same scary. You're not in space, right? You're on a planet full of oxygen. So,
would you want them to try and take another crack at Dead Space 3 co-op? Like remake Dead Space 3 from the ground up, but with maybe just some of the high level ideas?
I think if that's what that team there wants to make, then that would be cool. But I think ultimately, what do they want to do? What I don't want to see is another, like Dead Space 3, there were corporate hands all over that thing. They were really involved. And I think that's the reason it's the lowest rated Dead Space game. I think like we as a dev team overcame some of those hurdles. And so that team in Montreal is super talented. There's some really good people there. And so like, if they really wanted to make Dead Space, which it seems like they did, then awesome. I can't wait to play it. If EA was like, we need to cash in on Dead Space because they figured out something, someone ran some numbers, was like, we can do this. It's one thing about this is like there was the Resident Evil 2 remake, right?
Yeah.
And that did really well. And so like I know how EA works. They follow. They're very much like, oh, if something did well, then it's easier to get a thing greenlighted at EA. And so my only concern about the whole thing would be if some team that has some amazing game they want to make and they're being like forced to make someone else's thing, then that would suck. But reading the interviews and talking to the people I know on the team, I don't think that's the case. I think they're really excited about doing this. If they're whatever they're excited about doing next, I think that's what they should do. Yeah. All right, long rambling answer.
No, I think that's completely fair. Yeah, I mean, you can only project where you would be at, but it's like, if I was a developer up there in Montreal, it's like, finally I can work on Dead Space and a remake in a game that's actually going to come out compared to what Project Atlas, their kind of physicsy open world thing that they've been working on since the start of the studio, and then that is shuttered. Like that has to be so soul crushing. So just to have like a surefire path of like, here's a clear direction, remake Dead Space, go, and that fans are going to be loving it. Like I'm sure that's a breath of fresh air for EA Motive up there.
And you can just kind of hunker down and focus. The big thing is being able to just like focus on making the best version of the thing that you want to make, and not like, oh, how do we fit this in or how do we fit that in, or like worrying about sales or whatever. That Ars Technica interview that you mentioned with Glenn, he talks about that in there, that like he didn't even like, the game came out and reviews started coming in and he was like, oh right, like reviews. Like he was so head down on just making the best game that he could make. He wasn't worried about what other people were going to think about it, and it shows. You can tell that like a lot of people just really cared about making this game. It wasn't like, they're getting a bunch of focus, not that you don't focus test, but like, there's focus tests where people play your game and they give feedback, and then there's focus tests where like marketing guys ask focus people about ideas. They run these like focus groups, and then they go, this is how you end up with like a Battlefield Hardline. It's like, oh, we'll take GTA and cops and robbers and Battlefield and we'll put it all together, and you stick a team on that, and that's what you hate to see, right? But that's not the case here with the remake for sure. They're all in on it.
And for the record, you were a producer on Battlefield Hardline, just for that reference.
Producer on Battlefield Hardline. Okay. I very much enjoyed that game, but sorry, that's like how it works a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, hey, just to get back to the nuts and bolts here, Jacob Schmidt says the game does something really interesting to build tension with plasma cutter ammo in the early game. Plasma cutter ammo. This is why I love the deepest dive. Thank you, Jacob. Plasma cutter ammo always gives you 6 rounds, but a stack of them in your inventory holds 25, and in the beginning, your gun only holds 10. Since these don't add up nicely, it means getting plasma cutter ammo is always either not enough for a full clip or too much that you lose precious inventory space. Subtle design choice, but it does a lot.
Yep.
Do you believe that developers were that mathematical about it, Zach, from your experience?
I mean, they definitely knew about it. You play the game so much when you're making it. They're aware of that because you notice it right away. The first time you have an inventory pinch, you notice, and you're looking at some Ruby semiconductor that can buy you a node. Right, but you need that plasma cutter ammo so bad.
Yeah. Do I fire off 3 shots at the wall here just so I can pick this thing up?
Right. Clemens Zobel says, love the weapon upgrade system in this game. Finding a power node is always so satisfying, and feeling the difference between standard and fully upgraded weapons are so nice. It makes facing the terror a little easier. Jordan Holmdahl submits over on Patreon. Overall, I'm having a much better time with Dead Space than I expected. However, I am so frustrated over the equipment upgrade system. To upgrade items like Isaac's rig or the plasma cutter, players have to spend a significant number of nodes with no tangible benefit. For example, to fully upgrade Isaac's health, a priority for me in almost any game, you need to commit 8 nodes to the upgrade tree and before you can max out his HP. As far as I can tell, nodes are rare in exploration and prohibitively expensive at the store, and on top of this, they're also used to open optional rooms filled with resources and world-building material. I can't think of another game that has had upgrade currency double as a single-use key, and I really do not like the implementation here. Am I alone?
I think having to make that choice of like, you're having to, it's investment. Like it's not just, oh, I want this thing. Like, and there's always something else that you can get right now that isn't as good, but you want that health. And it's like, well, it's 3 nodes.
Right. And I like having it as the key. I thought that was really interesting. If you want to boil it back down to some Sid Meier stuff of like, that's an interesting game decision, right? Of like, okay, do I want to pop this to get into that room? I can see a couple chests in there, but what could possibly be in there? But I do think like the upgrade system in general, maybe I'm not finding enough nodes or something, but it looks like just an infinite amount of slots. And I just see it as there's no way I'm going to get anywhere in any of these trees. Am I nuts? Should I be buying more of these things or something?
You really, yes, you should be buying more of them. Like they're like my main cash flow is buying nodes. And this is one of the reasons why it helps to only have like 2 guns is because if you get more than those, it gets completely overwhelming if you're thinking about upgrading them or whatever. And so for me, it's like, yeah, pretty much all the nodes, at least for the first couple levels, go into the plasma cutter. I never upgrade HP, which is just one of those kind of like choices that you make where it's like, look, man, that's 4 nodes to upgrade it twice. Like for that, I could get like a damage and a capacity and whatever. So yeah, but I do like on the kind of key thing, you find an audio log or like a text log pretty early on that says like, I always keep one of those in my pocket just in case a door is malfunctioning. And it's like immediately that just became, it's like, okay, that's part of Dead Space is like, you cannot spend all of them. You need to have one at all times because you don't want to run into one of these rooms and miss it.
Right. Yeah.
You always open. If there's a node door, you always open.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I've been burned like once where it was like, 2 pieces of plasma cutter ammo and some oxygen thing. I'm like, that's just like free money, right? Is anybody really relying on having some of these oxygen things ready to go? I maybe have like 1 in my inventory at all times.
Yeah, no, you can just sell it.
Okay,
yeah,
it's a really
one
weird
sequence
thing.
Right before the asteroid shooting when you're running the like trench run. I think you need one there, but they give it to you.
Yeah.
Or they have those refills like built into the little walls too.
Yeah. Robert Cassidy says, I think it's interesting that the quote-unquote iconic design for Isaac doesn't fully emerge until you upgrade your suit a couple times. I was a little shocked when he first put on the helmet at the beginning of the game since it didn't match the image of him that's been plastered everywhere. Yeah, it is just that weird saggy potato sack in the beginning that he's running around in.
Saggy potato sack.
It's a good
He's
look.
just a regular engineer, just a regular schlubby engineer guy.
Yeah, he doesn't know he's going to be on the box art. He's just doing his job, man.
Yeah, the functionality of that clothing is questionable at best. Like, it's like, why do you need little strips of armor? Like, what does that do? Does that help you hack doors? I love the door hacking in the beginning where you just shoot out the door.
Right,
what a hack.
right.
Yeah.
There's an even funnier one where it's like literally the first door in the game. They say, Isaac, here's the engineer. Can you get over here and hack this door? And it's literally just clicking the open button. It's like, wait, can you not do that? Like, am I the only one on the ship?
I like the moment too where Hammond is up by the tomato farm or whatever, where he's on the floor, help me, and you walk up to him and he's like, please, Isaac, don't take your helmet off, please don't, the air's not good. But it's like, what, you respect Isaac? Is that like the rapport they have? Or it's like, hey, what's going on, man, gotta help you out? It's like, no, of course I'm gonna leave my freaking helmet on.
Relationship is weird, and Hammond is always way too calm and collected.
He makes me laugh though. And a majority of his calls, I feel like they all end with like, all right, I gotta go. I think I heard something. Or like, there's something really big right now. Okay, bye.
He actually reminds me of, and I forget the actor's name and the character's name too, but in Resident Evil, you have the lead of like the team that comes in to extract Alice or to go and like stop the Red Queen and like all that type of stuff. The guy who gets like cubed by the laser grid
in the movie. Okay, yeah.
In the movie. Sorry, not the game. In the movie, he reminds me of that guy a lot. Like the way he talks, the calmness, like it reminded me a lot of that.
I can see it.
I do appreciate a character who at least has an air of like, I know what I'm doing. I have some confidence, and like ultimately, like he doesn't, there's problems there, but like I like that he's like, look, I'm in charge. We're gonna do this. Like referencing Sunshine, like my favorite scenes in Sunshine are where they all know exactly what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. Look, you're the most important. We're less important than you, so we got to make sure you live. Like I like that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Well, and there always like that also helps drive horror too. Like if you think of like any horror cast, there is always the one skeptic or the one person who's calmer than everybody else because they think they have a handle on things.
Yeah,
and like that helps drive that.
Right, and they're obviously hinting, like Kendra, they're trying to hint or make the player believe that Hammond knows more and is up to know. He's like,
don't spoil anything, but like
I'm not.
I know
that's really what Kendra's trying. Kendra's calling you, going, I don't this guy, and like, what's going on with this guy?
Right.
Yeah, I like her a lot too. I like her being like something's like her. I like her just like going against Hammond and being like, look, I don't agree with you, and I want you to write that down in your little deck or whatever to tell your bosses that I think you're doing something wrong. Like I appreciate that that confidence that she has, and I like their constant bickering.
Yeah.
There's also that thing. There's that thing that happens towards the end of the section we were playing where Hammond's like something happened. I lost Kendra. I can't believe I lost her. And I'm like, you lost her? And it's like their relationship is kind of fraught enough that I'm like, I don't know if I should believe you. Like, I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, my fingers are crossed that it's not just the standard Hammond wanted to, he knew all about this mysterious object and he wants to harness its power. Like, I am hoping it doesn't go down that cliche route. So fingers crossed, no spoilers.
I think that right before he says that, like not 2 minutes before, you have your last contact with her and she's like, I don't trust this dude.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And then like 2 minutes later, he's like, I don't know what happened to her.
The Chun writes in and says, at the end of chapter 6, post butthole boss fight, I find myself intrigued by Sergeant Zach Hammond's character arc so far. At first, he seems like a bit of a suspicious jerk, but then he butters you up by being vulnerable in front of the pumpkins. And now he's missing. That's true, June. I mean, he did that in front of the pumpkins, which is a very sweet place to butter you up. Chun says, I know Kendra doesn't trust him, but I think we should all collectively give him the benefit of the doubt with 0 reservations. All right, I guess I'm with you. Also, I like Sean Christopher Manning left a comment on Patreon saying, early in the game, you have to find Matthias to get some codes, and after some digging, Kendra informs you he's dead, to which Hammond responds, what? How? As if you hadn't answered a distress call only to immediately discover hordes of monsters and corpses all over the Ishimura. I don't think Hammond is qualified to be leading security.
Yeah, I think he had a brain tumor or something.
Something's off with this dude. Harrison Holt McHale says, this is my first time playing the game and I'm loving it so far. But one thing jumped out at me in chapter 4. On the way out of the captain's nest, a necromorph wakes up in the last remaining escape pod and Hammond swiftly jettisons it. When the ship is currently being wrecked by asteroids and no guarantee it'll get fixed. When someone who's proven to be so able to swiftly dispatch necromorphs is right there. You know what? He's doing his own thing, Hammond. Just gotta let him be. So they have been obviously communicating a lot that all is not what it seems, that there's a lot of hallucinations for people who are around this mysterious object that's related to the planet, all that fun stuff. It seems like it first kind of drives home when you get like the audio logs from Nicole. Or maybe it's not even an audio log that you pick up. I feel like it's just like blasting on the screens with her being like, make us whole, Isaac. Make us whole, please. And it's like, okay,
we haven't talked about, which is like is Isaac losing his mind? Like what's going on with that, right? Like, yeah.
It's interesting. I am curious to see how far they go in that direction. If it's just as simple as, yeah, I got a little fried and I heard Nicole's voice when I probably shouldn't have. Like, I hope that it turns out that there's some bigger twists here and that things are more twisted than we think.
I will say one of the things, like replaying through this, it makes me think of the Doctor Who episode. What's that Satan planet? The Beast, the Impossible Planet. It's a two-parter. They go to a planet and it's like a work crew with like the Oods for the first time, and they end up like discovering like what may be the devil and like all of this weird like stuff coming out of it. And anyway, artifact, hallucinations, evil somewhere. It actually makes me think of Doctor Who. Again, I don't know the timeline on that. I think it's after.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm gonna look that up.
It's powerful stuff. You
guys
can't
remember? I think we just found out, maybe in chapter 5 or chapter 6, that the marker is on the ship. Is it Kendra that says that, or is that in an audio log that we hear that?
I think they talk about it because, well, there's a lot of discussions about how
because the other person is like, yeah, it's, we're just doing our work or whatever.
Right.
And the other person's like, I can't. Maybe it's Kendra and Hammond talking about it.
Yeah, Kendra's convinced that Hammond knows a lot about the marker and the fact that it was brought on board, and he's like, I'm just trying to survive. I don't know anything more than anybody else. Click. It's a lot of that stuff. Let's see. Other beats we haven't hit here.
Can we talk about the actually, first we need to talk about the big tentacle that comes and grabs you.
Yeah.
Because half of that Ars Technica video is like, this was so hard it almost broke our game. Like, programming this is like harder than you could possibly imagine.
Oh, really?
And because they say they had to redo, as well as just like, can it track to the foot? Can it do this thing? But because they wanted you to shoot it, they had to animate Isaac holding every gun like separately for him lying on his back being dragged. It's just like an unbelievable amount of work. But that is like maybe the most memorable moment of this playthrough, and just like pure kind of scary gameplay stuff. You open a door and a big tentacle comes and grabs you.
That moment actually sticks with me as much as the moment in Resident Evil where the dogs jump through the window in the mansion, like, and you don't expect it, and it's just like all safety shattered.
Totally.
And like we've seen the tentacle before that happens, but that also scared me. But like when it actually grabs you, like that's probably one of my favorite moments in this game, like overall.
Like, yeah, just the idea of seeding the boss fight. I always love when the big boss fight, perfect dividing line for the half point of the game, by the way, this big Leviathan boss fight, but just the idea of you've been seeing it for at least a couple chapters now, just with the stupid tentacle is so fun.
I was just going to say, the way that they set up that tentacle, like the first you kind of see it, and then the first time it grabs you, you can shoot it. It's just holding you basically, and there's some scary music. It's like a slow drag, and then the next time it grabs you, you shoot it, and you go to aim again, and it yanks you, which throws off your aim. And now it's like pulling you around this corner. And I had made a note on that. Like, that's like a really good way to sort of like layer and get some extra mileage out of something that he spent 80% of the podcast or that interview talking about that moment, like they spent so much time and effort.
Yeah, I mean, they said everything about it was like that tentacle could die at any point on that corridor, which makes it like so much harder, because it's like it's a scripted sequence, but like the player can kind of end it if they're good enough, or can kind of shoot quickly enough, or they can get dragged all the way to the end and die horribly.
Yeah. That boss fight, definitely where we're at now, I'm drained of pretty much everything. I've still got some money.
You're talking about the Leviathan. You're talking about somebody called it the butthole monster.
Yeah, isn't that the same thing? Like, aren't those his tentacles?
About the thing that drags you, that like comes out.
But I know.
It's connected.
I think those tentacles that you're shooting in the Leviathan boss fight, I read it as those are the tentacles that have been going to the ship as like the same hit point. But
maybe. I didn't think about that.
Okay.
I didn't either.
One kind of funny thing.
Joints.
Yeah.
While I was playing this, someone mentions that there's a 20 kiloton mass in like the hold, and that's the thing. And I was streaming it, and I was like, oh, how much is 20 kilotons? And the answer is like impossible. It's like 44 million pounds or something. So it's like, I don't know if, maybe the person making the note in the game was like, I just want him to know it's really big, but like someone typed the number in the chat and I was like, that's not a real number. Like that can't.
No, if you get there's a text log that explains that he's hiding a black hole.
Right, right. All those little poop mouths or poop wads in his mouth that he shoots out. Yeah.
How'd you do on that boss fight, Hanson, with your motion sickness?
I was okay. I actually, to my detriment, I probably was just popping health in the most clumsy way possible, apparently. But I didn't do too much of like the jumping around. I probably should have been more of a leaper going around that battlefield. There's just a lot of points of like, I'll just take the little bit of a hit. I've got a bunch of medium med packs here, but yeah, I did okay. And Dramamine is the answer, everybody. Really load up on that stuff. But yeah, is everybody else doing okay ammo-wise and everything at this point? Okay. All right, so Zach and I are scraping the bottom.
I'm constantly out of ammo because I want to spend all my money on nodes. And so if I have 10,000, I'm getting a node. I don't care if I'm out of ammo. And I also know that the game knows that you're out of ammo and wants to give you the ammo.
Right.
But it never gives me enough, and I'm not very good. I'm not very good at aiming. And when there's so many things going on, I know how to play the game really well, but I get panicked, and I end up wasting a lot of ammo. And so I'm constantly struggling for ammo.
Yeah, it gives me so much force energy. It's like I don't need any more force energy, please.
Yeah, I have a lot of ammo. I don't buy it because I'm saving my money for other things, but I also knew early on that I was going to need a lot of ammo. So all of my inventory, with the exception of 2 slots, and those 2 slots are for my med packs, everything else was ammo for like the first 2 chapters. So like when it started getting scarce, I actually had enough to pad.
You can
terrible shot.
You can put it in the bank though. Like that's what nice. I do. Is like when you get to the store, you can put it there, and then it's like when it gets tough, you can pull it back out.
Yeah. I'm not a smart player.
It's very recommended. It's definitely the way to go.
I mean, sticking to the one gun, which I think I've committed to at this point. Yeah. Like I've played the game with the other guns. I'm having fun with the one gun. That simplifies everything and makes it so that like I have a decent amount of ammo. And then like I really am not spending money because like I don't want to come across what I think would be the scariest thing in the game is there being a suit upgrade and me not having enough money to buy it. That would be horrifying.
Getting shivers just thinking about that concept.
I do want to know like what people's like the hardest enemies for you all are, like because like the little babies with the things that pop out those are the creepiest ones. I don't like them at all. Like no, but the ones that I have the hardest time killing are the ones without legs that just have like the arm things.
The kind of seal looking ones,
like the tail.
Yeah, and the tail, because they're so flat to the ground. I have like it's like so
scorpions.
hard.
Yeah, when they jumped, like the first time one jumped at me, it was like, Jesus Christ, this is another style that I had not expected, is just the ability to take that gap. Because they're pretty early on.
Throughout Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2, whenever I see those, I'm just like, I'm losing health here. They're so
like
fast.
I will take the creepy baby things. I will take the little tiny baby boys that run around on the floor.
Right.
Those things. Like I struggle with them.
Also, it's the kind of darker necromorph that are really fast. Those really freak me out. That's where it's like I just got to pop stasis because I can't handle these guys.
I haven't died a ton from enemies. Like I got that rotating thing. I got knocked out by that a couple times. Just because I was like, I got to go right. Okay, that makes sense. But the enemy that has killed me, I think maybe twice, are the little itty bitty spidery guys. Because I'm just using the one. Yeah, I'm just using the little gun. So it's like I gotta take them all out or run past them. Then I gotta tap A and do the shimmy a lot, and it's like
I didn't know that those were in the game, so I really had the thing moment. Like the first time I saw the floor just scatter with those, I really had the moment of like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like what am I gonna do with these now? This is not part of my plan for Dead Space.
There's a moment in the game last night I was playing, and it's one of the first sequences with the hunter, which is the guy that can't die. We should talk about him.
Yeah.
And there's basically a point where they tell you, hey, he can't die. It's like the first time you fight him and the doors are all locked and you have to like fight him for a while. And it's like, hey, he can't die. Get out of there. And you run out and the door closes behind you. And of course you're going to turn and like, look at the door. Like this guy coming through? And that's when, and they drop the music and everything's calm. And that's when they release like
Yes.
a million of those little guys from the pipe behind you. I mean, it actually made me jump because I was like, I just calmed down. I was like, okay, this thing didn't make it through the door because you run through the door. I don't know if he made it through the door behind me.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm like running and like I want to turn, but I don't want to turn. So it's like, and it just happened to be right in the spot where I turned. Immediately, I had the moment of like, and then pop, 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 they're jumping all over me.
Oh God.
It's worth one of the nice things about dying is that this game has incredibly involved death sequences.
Yeah.
and it is worth, if you see a new enemy type, it's kind of worth dying to them because like there's one, they're little spindly guys, like not the spiders, but they're just like 3 tentacles and then kind of like a piece on top. And
Yeah.
it's like the things they do to you in the death animation are truly inspired.
Yeah.
And it's
Before
like, it's
game
worth
dev,
seeing
watch the
them.
death animations.
Yeah. Yeah. The one that's just stood out to me was, I think it's from the big burly guy, not the kind of shoot in the back guy, but the big scary one that you have to run away from. Like his attack and the way that he kills you, it's like, it felt to me like a 40-second clip of him just like gutting me a million different ways. It's like, oh my God, it's so detailed.
Yeah.
The death sequences.
One of the things I wanted to say, because like I know that a lot of people give a lot of crap to jump scares, like in general, regardless of the medium, whether it's games or movies. But I actually think jump scares, especially when used effectively, and like they can be used a lot. What it does, and what I think gets overlooked, is jump scares make you scared of every corner.
Yeah.
Because you know that something's going to happen there. And it like jump scares are definitely very integral to like building an unsafe atmosphere. And so I think, because I know that I've heard from people like, oh, Dead Space has a lot of jump scares and I don't like jump scares. I like psychological. Get out now. Go away.
I play Soma, you nerd.
like jump scares that unsettle you makes everything else after it unsafe. Like all it takes is seeing one of those things pop through a vent one time and you're like, okay, no vent is safe. Like all it took was me trying to keep my back to the wall and realizing that like that's actually not even a good strategy to like shake any foundation I had. So like I think like there are a ton of jump scares in here, and some of them, you know, may not be totally awesome, but like I think what it does is it creates an ultimate atmosphere where like the monsters that we're all talking about just get creepier. And then like I think watching the death animations also made me more afraid of them.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, and it's not even just the monster jump scares either. I think one of the scariest moments in the game for me, and I don't know what triggered this or even what it was, but it's like a long elevator ride, and then got to the bottom of the elevator, and then just like a woman scream. And I don't know if it was like a, you know, Nicole hallucination or if it was actually supposed to be some NPC in the world or whatever, but like that scared the hell out of me. It's just, the sound is, if we haven't mentioned that, is absurd.
I love the loud room, of which there's just that room where it's like the whole game is loud, but there's one room where it is literally the sound of like a subway screeching that they've like,
and the flashing lights
but it's
too.
Like, you just open a door and it is so loud immediately, and the lights are flashing, and it's just like every kind of like flight sensor in your body just goes off, and it's like, I need to get out of here. Like this place is bad.
Oh yeah. Matt Lynch submits a comment and says, this game is fun because you can enter any room and you might randomly get your eardrums blown out. So yeah, well said, Matt. You never know what to expect. And like, I'm amazed how often they're using like train noises. Like it's just when an enemy will attack you, they'll just have like a train horn all of a sudden. It's just absurd. And I want to say, God, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you know, Zach, wasn't it that they recorded like the BART train?
No, you're thinking of The Sims.
I'm thinking of The Sims. Wait, what?
Well, no, but in the Ars
guys are recording Bart. I mean, maybe they did for this too. I don't know what they used for that.
They talk about recording some train. So I don't know what it is, but it's something like that.
I don't know, but
Yeah,
the
I'm
other
not sure.
thing that's interesting about that, it's like those squeaks and squeals. Every time you like start an elevator, well, there's like these squeaks and squeals in there. Of course there are, because there's a mechanical mechanism spinning up, but it's like weirdly related to this. It makes you like look around every time I start an elevator because it's like so similar to like the necromorph
Right.
screech, I guess you would call it.
That's where they learned
Well,
it from.
I was gonna say too, elevators are the most deceptive thing in this game because the first time you dive into one, you're safe and you're like, yes, it's like
Yeah.
every other game. It can't follow me here. And then you go to like the next set of elevators and one of them through it and can attack you.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, it's not okay.
Yeah, like I mean, early on they do like the full Terminator 2 moment of like Necromorph like shoving his hands, in that
Yes.
elevator just to let you know, like, oh no, you should be scared everywhere. Even in a room where you can save and they have a store, like you can still get attacked. Like Caleb Weiss Gerber here says, at the end of chapter 4, there's a store in the hallway between the large bridge room and the tram. If you stop at the store, it'll trigger a Necromorph to drop out of a vent next to you and attack the moment you exit the store screen. Getting bum rushed in an area you think is safe scared the hell out of me the first time when I played Dead Space in 2008, and it scared the hell out of me last week in 2021. And then he talks about, I guess we won't spoil it, but there's another big game that came out not too long ago that has that similar effect if you think you're safe
I thought
and then
of
you're
exactly that moment. Yep.
Okay.
I was like, hey, look at that, 2008.
not. Oh, good. Ben Shively says, can anyone else think of a game more satisfying? Can think of a game with more satisfying objective complete or health replenish sound effects? For a game that's all about keeping you on edge, these sounds are delightful. Yeah, they're good, no doubt. This is a very specific thing, and I'm sorry for injecting it into everybody else's head while they're playing this game, but I can't go to a menu in this game. I think it's pause a little bit, but then mainly like the store menu and stuff. It sounds like it goes like boop, bap, 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 real quick, and it sounds like Disturbed's Down with the Sickness. It's like this weird synth version of like, oh, wow, except it sounds like that if you made like a MIDI version of Down with the Sickness. Just please keep your ear out for it because it ruins the entire game.
Now I just need somebody watching to actually cut that together.
Oh,
with Down
that'd be
with the
so
Sickness,
sweet. Please. So in the big buildup, and it just cuts to the Dead Space menu. Darkfish Days says, among the plethora of great sounds, the bench opening and closing is my favorite with its weighty crunch. It's weakly loud and intimidating,
Ooh.
but also satisfying.
Yeah.
It's very good. David Stonemiller has a good point, saying, I hope the remake embraces the audio fidelity that Atmos/3D audio provides and manages to recapture that horrifying magic again.
Oh, I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah.
Audio upgrade would be pretty crazy considering like, man, the audio. Every note I wrote, I went chapter by chapter and I wrote notes, and every sequence, like it's like blah, blah, I'm writing the note of the sequence and why I think it's good, and then it's like period, and then it's just audio exclamation point.
Yes.
Like every one of them, like also the audio. It's amazing.
And it's mainly Don Vecca. Is that how you pronounce his last name for the audio director? I think he left.
Sure, and then that team, that team there, we had a really good audio team there.
Yeah.
We had a lot of audio trophies.
Yeah.
All
I-
the Visceral Studios.
He said, like, just for this game alone, I interviewed Don later on when he was working on Advanced Warfare, and he said, for this game alone, the team won 21 awards just for the sound design for this. It's mind-boggling.
Well, I was gonna say, like, a lot of the time, like, and by a lot of the time, I mean, like, by like people who like aren't critics, but like people don't talk about sound design enough in horror.
Yeah.
Like they talk about the colors and the character designs or the monster designs, but a lot of people don't necessarily talk about like how the sound can just pull you out of everything. And like, and I actually think a lot of the audio dropping out pieces when you go to like the breach parts of the Ishimura, it reminds me a lot of like the techniques that like were used in Midsummer, where when she goes into her panic attacks and all the audio is gone except for her breathing, and how that breathing makes you tense. And I feel like when horror is like at its peak, it's all about using that sounds to get in your head and put you where that person or that character is. And I think that this game does it very well, both from a personal and intimate standpoint with the, you know, gasping for breath at 40 seconds,
Yeah.
or from the big grand moments, or even just the shutting doors. Like all of that like feeds into just making you feel this game.
Totally. And I'm trying to remember, I think it's that thing that's invincible at first. But then just hearing him in the halls, and you think of Mr. X or something from Resident Evil, but just that idea of, okay, I know they can't go through doors, which is it's a very comforting thing, by the way, in this game. Maybe they'll shake it up, but at this point, just knowing that like anytime I slam a door, I am safe, baby. No raptors around here. But just the first time you encounter him, then just hearing him stomping around, I'm still terrified of when he's gonna pop out again. And like that second time you encounter him where you're locked in, and then Kendra's like, I just need a little bit of time to open the doors or whatever. I think that was the hardest part of the game for me. I died in that space so many times. Yeah. Is that a similar thing? Was that the toughest spot for everybody other than the asteroids?
That's still like the second. So you encounter him alone, and then that's the one where they drop other enemies in there too.
Yeah. When there's babies and other necromorphs running in there, that destroyed me so many times.
Did you know, like, as soon as you got in a room with kind of a tube that like that's where he was going to have to go, or did you have to figure that out?
Oh, for the cryo stuff?
Yeah, for the kind of like finale of
that I got
sequence.
Immediately, but I was talking about another space. I forget if it's like a medical ward or something, but yeah, for that one, that was pretty quick.
That place is wild. Yeah, I used a whole bunch of stasis there, and
Okay, but yeah, the cryo is one of those things where it was beautifully sweet game design, where it's like, okay, I see what's going on here, see what I need to do, put him in there, bing, bang, boom. It felt like almost too smooth and easy. It was just like one try, he got him in there. It's like, oh, cool, all right, goodbye, nightmare.
It is interesting that there's a boss in Resident Evil 5 that is beat in like exactly the same way. I mean, I'm sure there are like more video games that you do basically this thing, but like it's funny with like, this is so clearly, Resident Evil 4, and then wait, when did Resi 5 come out? But it's like, oh, we're trapping the invincible thing in a big, incinerator or something. Yeah. That happens.
Jacob Hubbard says the speed of the enemies is downright terrifying, especially compared to other recent titles like Resident Evil 8. I remember when I first played this, being frustrated at my poor aim and how difficult it felt, but now as a more seasoned player, the challenge of limb cutting is much appreciated. I wish more games featured de-emphasized headshots. Yeah. It's kind of tough for other games to really lean into that other than having big glowy spots other than the head, right?
Yeah. And it's also really creative too, because I feel like the fact, like what makes it really good about it not being headshots is the fact that it essentially breaks down how you play games. Like you can't play this game the way you play other games. And that's something that is like really important. And I'm just going to keep saying it adds to the horror element, because like the thing that you should know to get rid of these things doesn't necessarily work. And like you shouldn't be doing, popping heads off. And like, I think that that's something like, I don't know if you can replicate it in another environment unless you would have to make new kill mechanics for some sort of creature, because a headshot will work on pretty much every enemy at the end of the day. So you would have to like build a monster to then have that mechanic.
Yeah.
It is hilarious just how many times they say cut off their limbs.
Yes.
It's one of those things where it feels like you could watch the designers like beating their head against the wall as QA wouldn't get it, because it's written in blood. It says cut off their limbs. You find like an audio log that's like cutting off their limbs. It's the one thing that works. You get a tutorial pop up that says cut off their limbs, and then like Hammond calls you and he's like, the one thing that I found that works is cutting off their limbs within like 4 minutes. Like it's so.
And that's why in the remake it'll be great to have Isaac say, I get it, enough already. Yeah. The limbs, it's not that hard to understand. But using X to heal, he emphasizes, is impossible to remember. Joshua Duperoy says, I completely forgot about the whole test tube baby scene with the eerie green light, not to mention the faint crying in the background, which was a really nice touch. It's a great introduction to that enemy as well. All the enemy intros have been super immersive to the omission of traditional cutscenes.
Yeah.
The baby stuff. Maybe we're just cool and I don't know, more used to horrifying things, but I'm sure that was like the big deal back in the day, is like, these are the scariest babies I've ever seen.
So like, honestly, because I'm a woman, like anything that has to do with children in horror, like monstrous motherhood, like the trope in horror where like women give birth to monsters.
Yeah.
Like whether or not it's something that is cut from a test tube, like there is just something inherently in me that's like, oh my God, what it that grew in me, and that makes it scarier. And I don't want children, and I don't necessarily like children.
Well, not
I'm one of
those.
those people. And so like that makes it even worse because I'm like, I already don't want to be a mother, but now this thing is here and this is just so much worse. And like, and it's not like the most extreme that I've seen of that trope done like with babies and stuff.
Right.
But I
Dead
think
Space
it's
2.
yeah.
Some stuff going on.
I think we did it. Dante's Inferno is the one.
Ooh, what happened
Yeah.
there?
All right. Yeah.
This sort of games, like
Yeah.
now you guys are talking about this, like just as you were talking about this, I was like, I had this weird epiphany where I'm like, because I don't remember there being any backlash about babies in Dead Space, but I remember it from Dante's Inferno, the backlash.
Yeah.
Dante's Inferno, like that was that whole game. Was like, can we?
Yeah.
put
Yeah, but
crazy
babies
stuff
are
on
the first
screen?
thing in that game because you're in limbo, and
Yeah.
then
Right,
the babies in limbo, and then you have to slaughter them, and it was the it's like
What?
the first hour of the game.
Ben, you should
Yeah.
play Dante's Inferno.
I kind of
Well,
want
I
to play
think
it.
I
Yeah.
think that there's the difference when it comes to like Dante's Inferno and Dead Space. Is in Dead Space, it's all understood that it's like engineered, whereas like Dante's Inferno, like it is actually the souls of children.
Right, yeah.
So, like,
Literally.
So I think that like that's the difference. But like
It's
I
so
will.
funny that you mentioned the babies, and I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
we were always
Yeah.
like doing the baby thing. Why were we doing the baby?
And my vote for the scariest kind of like common enemy is the pregnant one, because it's
Ooh.
like it's so big and they usually kind of like put it a ways away from you, so you probably have like more time to line up your shots, but it's just like marching towards you, and you know that if you place your shots wrong, you're gonna be swarmed by like the million little spiders that crawl out of its belly. And like, to me, that is much more nightmarish than just like a kind of mutated baby is like, it's like the spider egg thing. Like spider
Yeah.
eggs are
Right.
horrible, and then it's like you accidentally touch one and a million babies
Oh,
come out.
yeah,
It's like,
no,
ugh.
don't say that.
Yeah, come on, Jack. Be cool, dude. Come on, man.
But yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, to the baby point, that's where my brain goes.
I get
and
it.
I think to the spider sack monster.
Yeah.
Well, it's just that immediate fear.
Zach, do you remember that time? Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a hazy memory. Wasn't there something about how EA hired protesters to protest Dante's Inferno, and then they were revealed to be hired by EA?
I mean, we had real protesters that did have. It was like an E3 thing, right?
Yeah.
They had some big religious protest outside of E3, and then it ended up being not. It was like paid for by EA marketing.
Jesus
There's
Christ.
also Dead Space 2 also had the not amazing marketing campaign that was entirely "Your mom will hate Dead Space 2."
Favorite
Where it
marketing.
was showing all the like horrified mothers, like, I can't believe you're playing
That's
this.
right. That's right. What a weird era.
Selling the game, but that was one of my favorite marketing campaigns.
Also messed up things in this game. The doctor who's, I know this is also a Dead Space 2 thing. I do know this about it, but like the doctor who stabs himself in the eye. Like that one killed me here. Where I forget if he had a knife or a big needle, but he's just like talking like, all right, time to end it all. Or I think it's in the video, right? And then he just like goes for the big stabs. Oh God. Or
Yeah.
the doctor stabbing the captain in the eye, I think is what it is. Yeah. And then everybody turns on him.
I can do like I've watched Martyrs multiple times. I can do gore horror.
Yeah.
It's not a problem for me unless it's eyes or nails or teeth. And you don't even have to show me any of it happening. Like you can just like you don't have to show something going in the eye. You can show it from the perspective of it just going in, and I'm just like, nope, we're not gonna do this. I have to close my eyes here.
Have you seen the first level of Psychonauts 2 yet? That's all in the mind of a dentist?
No.
Well, let me just describe something to you that happens.
Oh no.
So it's all tooth themed, and they have doors and they have teeth sideways, and there's a big metal zipper that's used to like unzip the teeth, and it's like the nastiest thing I've seen in a game since Dante's Inferno Babies. So check it out, Kate. You can't miss it.
Those things just like make my like I feel very weird
Yep,
now.
that's
I
natural.
wanted to play Psychonauts 2. I don't know.
No, you can't do it now. H Large Force says, while there are plenty of traditional jump scares in Dead Space, monster closets, haunted mazes, I'm particularly impressed with how unnerving Dead Space makes large, open environments. The first ZRG section you encounter instills a unique sense of dread as you traverse the environment fully exposed and open to attack from every angle. Yeah, good point. Like if Resident Evil just had suddenly a wide open space, it's tough to make that really feel intimidating. Other than maybe
it's one of those, for me, it's like almost like a video game engine thing where it's like, I think subconsciously I assumed these spaces are all kind of claustrophobic because maybe this game can't do a big space with like the level of detail that it does. And so to then walk into one, it's like, oh, I didn't expect this at all.
Right, for sure. Let's see. Oh, Fred DeNovo says something worth checking out is that technically Isaac is not a silent protagonist in the game. He doesn't speak, sure, but within the menu, if you go to the objectives tab, you can read each objective written by Isaac like a journal entry. He writes out as much early in the game once you get your first task. It's more than just, I need to go fix the HVAC because it's hot in here. He'll express concerns, fears, distrust, etc. Not the most fleshed out, but worth checking out in whenever you obtain a new objective to see what Isaac is thinking about.
I didn't know that. That may be a downside of the old press R stick objective. Is sometimes I just go.
Oh yeah,
that's cool. I gotta look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I worry that I'm missing out on side rooms too because I'm getting too addicted to just the hitting the objective marker and just trucking that way and not even checking a map to see if this is potentially a little dead end or not. Let's see. We got Tactical Dreamer who says in the first room where everything goes to hell and Isaac gets locked in a room away from everyone else, you can actually make that door stay open by manipulating Hammond's position in a very specific way. You can then run back into that room and watch the havoc from up close. But because it's essentially a cutscene, Isaac can't interact with it in any way. You can then walk through some environments that aren't fully formed to skip a bunch of the first chapter. This is, of course, a speedrun trick, and it's very fun to watch. Kate, I don't know if you got that hardcore with your speedrunning abilities.
So I'm not gonna lie, that was Kate many years ago.
Okay,
I don't remember
different version. I understand.
Yeah.
Sean Mills says the scariest part of the game for me happens if you wait 30 seconds at the start screen. A creepy voice starts singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and the screen jump cuts to several scenes of creepy necromorphs killing Isaac. These horrific scenes set to a classic lullaby really made me uneasy. I heard a voice singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in an elevator in chapter 6 and it creeped me out all over again.
I think there's a few places that you can hear it. I kind of assume it's Nicole, but I don't know if it's ever really
interesting
established.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way.
It is weird because it's like, if it's not Nicole, then there's nothing. I mean, it's like, unless the marker is making Isaac hallucinate a nursery rhyme, like there's not really a reason that would be in there, but it's like, yeah, maybe Nicole always singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
It's her favorite song back on Earth. Patrick O'Connor says, hello, Composer here. Hello, Composer. I just wanted to shout out something that I feel dramatically contributes to Dead Space's excellence, which is Jason Graves' iconic score. Yeah, we haven't really talked about the music so far. He composed the score at a time when the music technology wasn't up to the task of representing a mock-up of the music. As a result, he had nothing to truly illustrate what the score was actually going to sound like. The head of audio at EA at the time was trusting enough to fork out the huge chunk of the budget needed for the orchestral scoring sessions without ever hearing a note. Graves then recorded the orchestra in all their scratchy, screechy glory and assembled the score from these recordings. Yeah, it is intense. It's tough to find like the big iconic track, which, you know, I guess that's why for the teaser trailer for the new Dead Space, they use the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star as the callback instead of like, here's the Dead Space theme, because the Dead Space theme is just atmospheric nightmare.
Yeah,
when I mean the score too. The score and the sound effects and the way it's all tied together. When I say audio, I'm not just talking about sound effects. I agree. And it's not just the score, although the score is a big part of it, just the way they use the score as well, and bringing up the volume, bringing it in, fading it out, you know, all those things work really well.
Yeah, it's incredible. Also, if you want more Jason Graves, you can check out our music podcast called Crossfade, available on your favorite podcast app. On his episode, he's really into Rush. So if you're the type of nerd that's made it this far into the deepest dive, you're probably a nerd. We love you for that. So if you want to hear the composer of Dead Space rave about Rush, then check out Crossfade on your favorite podcast app. All right, Aaron T. coming in hot saying, you can't flush the toilets in this game? What are we even doing here? In all seriousness, though, I'd love to hear Zach's take on this from the studio side, because surely the Dead Space 1 team thought about this when adding bathrooms to the ship. What compels the studio to add or leave those little touches like flushing a toilet?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just extra time, or the way it works is there's just a bunch of tasks to do, and we just prioritize those, and probably flushing the toilets is way down there, or they're space toilets, and that's not how they work.
Interesting.
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean,
He's
also
an
Isaac
engineer. He's
doesn't.
not a plumber.
Yeah, he doesn't do much like goofy bullshit. Like
Yeah.
the way you can in BioShock you can flush all the toilets and you can go and like eat 17 croissants and you can like do all this stuff that kind of breaks it. And other than I guess stomping around, like they don't give you the capability of doing stuff as Isaac that like breaks the world. And I
Right.
think that's effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Blackburn asks, what the heck is the plasma cutter? What utility could that serve that wouldn't be served by a welding torch? Do you think EA Motive might move towards more cobbled together weapons, kind of like the Metro games? Maybe, but then again, the cutter's so iconic.
It's a mining tool. You
you
use it to
blast it.
cut stuff.
And no problem with the plasma cutter. And now there would be a bold move. Like get rid of the plasma cutter, or like make some other. Yeah, you can't do that. The plasma cutter.
I would riot.
I think everybody would riot. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's the one.
Can't do it. Let's see. Barry Logan Smith says, my two favorite writings on the walls so far are Save Us, written 6 times in a row, and then a larger Save Me. And then We Are So Effed is another graffiti quote. And then in a different font right next to it, it says, hey, it's okay to be effed. So there we go. I think there's one part too where there's graffiti that just says, F this ship. It's like, yeah, if I was on that ship and everything was going to hell, that's what I would do, is just go take my time to write, hey, this ship sucks. I think it's cool. I don't know if it's going to come back into play in any way, if it's just for hardcore fans, but I think in chapter 6, they have like the alphabet code, whatever you call that, for like some of the markings earlier. So you could decipher. Is that just called a cipher, I guess? Yeah.
You can get. I think there. If you Google it, that alphabet is out there, and you can go read all the weird marker language messages.
But it turns out they all just say F this ship. So it's,
necromorphs were here.
Yeah, exactly. An Attack Corgi says, the Ishimura is low-key horny. The engineers leave Interstellar Playboy magazines all over the place, and there's a flesh sex robot advert on the trams. Peng ads all over the place. I guess it's lonely out in space. Yeah, this is.
I mean, I would assume it's lonely out in space. What else are you gonna do? You're there for work. I assume you don't have your family with you.
Yeah, they got to advertise porn everywhere. And like, that's one of those things like, is that world building or just a bunch of guy devs in their 20s that want to put a bunch of porno mags everywhere? Zach, do you got any insight there?
Why they said Peng?
Peng.
P-E-N-G?
Yeah, I don't know. If that's,
Why is that? That's not.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Peng is being sexualized.
I don't know. It's on like, there's like a sexy lady there. It's confusing.
Yeah, Pang's like a weird Easter egg. Like you can find Pang in the game, right?
Oh, really?
And like, and the whole thing, like, what is Peng? Right? There's all these advertisements for it, but it doesn't tell you what it is, and then, yeah.
Huh.
yeah, it's just the poster. I just looked it up. It's just a lady's face, and it said, "There's always Pang."
Apparently, it's
They're all over in the studio. That
That's funny.
I wish I saved one because we had a bunch of those.
Oh, really?
I looked it up
That's
beforehand
amazing.
because I got to make sure I get Pang. I think it's in chapter 11 apparently, so I got to keep an eye out for Pang.
Oh, my God. All right. Jonathan 12 asked the pivotal question, why make the part of the suit that tells you how close you are to dying on your back so everyone can see it but you? Well,
This is he in that Ars Technica video that I've referenced 20 times. He talks about scuba divers and how there is like a readout on the back of a scuba tank, presumably so like another diver could check you.
You know what's
interesting.
crazy? It's not true. What happened is someone on the team said that. Oh yeah, like scuba divers have this thing, and they're like, yeah, that's it, that's cool, and they went and made the game, and then Glenn went and looked it up later. He's like, I couldn't find anything about it. But that's what it was. It was from scuba divers, but not actually.
Oh, that's
It's a pretty
funny.
cool little.
I
So you-
assume that he has like an Iron Man heads up display in his helmet that's showing
Yeah.
health, ammo, all
So
that.
to be fair, it does make sense from like an one, it makes sense so we can see it, but two, it makes sense from like an outside perspective. It's like if you do think of scuba divers, like what are you gonna do if you're way out and you know that your air is done? You can't get more air but the other scuba diver who you're with could give you an emergency line of air.
Right.
So like if he's out working and something happens and somebody who he's working with sees, it would make sense.
I see you're low on stasis. Here's some more stasis juice, buddy. That type of good, space co-op activity.
Also, I don't know my health meter, but like I bet doctors can look at me and they know.
Oh yeah. For how much schooling they got? Absolutely.
It's just on your back, Kyle. I meant to tell you this.
Nick submits a comment over there saying, I know games are made by large teams, so please help correct me if I'm wrong, but shout outs to Dino Ignacio. It's always been my understanding that he played a huge role in creating the diegetic UI. Zach, not to put everything on you, but does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, Dino's a good friend of mine. He's the UI designer. Like, I'm sure other people also worked on it, so I don't want to say it was all him, but he's a very, very smart, good dude. Yeah.
And now he's at Roblox, right?
Yeah, he was at Facebook for a while, and now he's at Roblox. Yeah.
That's got to be nice. Is it as clean as I imagine it is, where you can just put on your resume, I was Dead Space UI guy, and then just kind of walk into any studio and have a meeting?
Yeah, I think that he's probably at the level it's cleaner than that. Like he's getting recruited, right? And so people know that, there's some book on UI and like it's like Dead Space is on the cover. There's some like textbook. I saw, someone brought in is like Dead Space is in there, right? It's like he's like known now for that. And so like if people, and I think my understanding, I haven't played Roblox, but is that the UI is brutal. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah.
So that would make sense that they would go out and get someone like him. I know he has a daughter that plays a bunch of Roblox too. So he like got into Roblox. He started making Roblox videos with his daughter. Pretty cool.
Is it possible that there are mechanics in Dead Space that have that weird like video game patent thing where they like patented the idea? Because both like all of the UI and the like little nav locator and whatever seem so smart that it feels impossible that there aren't like dozens of third-person games that have that same thing. And sometimes it's like, we ask the same thing with like, why isn't there a Nemesis system? And it turned out that like it was patented and that companies could not copy it. It just, after I played Dead Space, I was like, well, every game will do something like this now.
Yeah.
And then they didn't. And I don't know why.
I don't know. I know that like those patents are a thing. I know that EA is aggressive about going and getting them. I used to sit near a designer who had the patent for the like using the stick to swing a golf club.
Oh,
and because Tiger Woods did that first or something, right?
Yeah.
And so then I would see other games that use that, and I'm like, well, how does that work? Because I talked to this guy, I didn't know him really well, but he had when you get a patent, you get like a little thing. It's like a little trophy thing that's like the patent, and I was always so envious. Like, man, I'd be like racking my brain every day and night, like I invent a mechanic that we can get patent, so I get a patent. But I've seen that mechanic used in other ones.
Right.
I don't know. Like, I don't know how any of that works, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's messy.
Otherwise, I'd have one.
It'd be nice. It'd be certainly nice. Kyle, anything we haven't hit yet?
Gosh, that's a good question. Did we talk about that it's really good?
It is good. Is there
really
anything negative that we haven't hit yet? If I may, I enjoy it. I'm enjoying my time a lot. The environments, I feel like it's a lot of the same hallways. Like when I got to that kind of area with the plants, I was like, okay, thank God. This place looks distinct. Other than the outside areas, obviously, which look radically different. But the plants really felt like a breath of fresh air just for the tone of the rooms. And so I'm hoping that in the second half, it's not just more spooky corridors with dark blood on the walls.
Yeah, I think that's super fair. But I think and I don't know if it's like even like I give it a little bit of a pass, and maybe it doesn't deserve one, but because it makes it so consistent, it's all taking place in one location. Like you can only kind of push it so far. But so like it doesn't bother me as much here as it would in other games, I think. But I do not think you're wrong. I think the hallways do look very similar. Yeah.
I would be shocked if they didn't change this in a remake or whatever. It is weird for such a beautifully kind of no cutscene, straightforward game that there's a big thing that says chapter complete at the end.
Right.
It's like you leave on the metro and you come back, and it's like, I think it works fine, but it's like for a game like this to have levels that are so discreetly kind of like separated from each other just feels a little weird with how kind of like realistic the rest of it feels.
That's a good
And
point.
you don't need to say it. And even though that stays in world, it is like they push the camera way in so you no longer see Isaac.
Yeah.
I made a note of that because like I think it's really cool that one of the only times you don't see him is in the store when he's getting the suit, and it's like really brief, right? Just the change of the suit. But one of the last chapters I played, I like made a note like, man, why did they push all the way in on that? Like it kind of takes, it's almost a cut. Like it's not, he's there, but
Yeah, I mean, just the suit thing doesn't feel like a loading screen, but the level transition feels like a loading screen, you know.
I'm sure it's not. They're just pushing on that UI for whatever reason. Like I'm wondering if like it's hard to remember now, but if like 2007, 2008, 2009, like every game like that was a thing. Every game has to have chapters and like achievements tied to chapters and maybe that's not it. Maybe that's not it at all. I'm just like speculating, right? But yeah.
Yeah, not sure. Yeah. Anything else we haven't hit?
I wrote down a note like no one ever talks about this game. This game also gives me heavy BioShock vibes.
Yes.
Like, I get a lot like, because like, BioShock to me was like scary, but like a lighter version of scary,
Yeah.
in the pattern of gameplay of like the way you explore the levels, come back to the stores and all that. Yeah, I don't know. Just a note.
No, I remember my first thought when I played it after being like, wow, this looks really good, was like you have that sequence where the people are behind the glass talking, and then you encounter that a few more times, and I was like, oh, that's the new normal for narrative in games because of BioShock. Because there's so many sequences in BioShock where someone's giving you directions from behind a glass so you can't interact with them directly.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like a direct line that I drew that I was like, oh, Dead Space took that from BioShock. Cool. Okay.
So like the
thing to
goofy
take.
little advertisements that are everywhere
Yes.
felt very BioShock to me.
Yeah.
It's true. I don't remember when BioShock came out. If they would even have had a chance to play it ahead of
It's like a
time.
year before
I never hear
this.
anyone mention it. They always talk about Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
Which I see that too. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think I love BioShock. I really love BioShock, but I think just because I like the groundedness and the being in space element of this, I prefer it. Like I just like it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody else. I'm sorry, I missed the comment, but somebody wrote in about the similarities as well for at least the first half of Dead Space feeling BioShocky.
I mean, I would say for like the adverts though, I feel like it makes sense because both BioShock and this, it's very like capitalistic system, right? Like you're in a situation where they're pushing things for you, you're destroying a planet for a corporation.
Right.
Like the adverts, I definitely agree. They feel like BioShock, but I feel like it's also like this idea of something being highly corporate, highly, pushing capitalism.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Makes that.
I forgot to mention the scariest audio log by a mile was the one where it's the doctor and you can hear the guy in the background and he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing with that tool? What are you doing? And the doctor's like, we're just going to do a little work here. And then you just hear the guy like blood curdling scream. Like you're laughing, but like that genuinely freaked me out. I felt like those performances were like, all right, it could have been really goofy, but it really got me and chilled me.
Audio logs are really good, and man, also like back to the pace thing. Every once in a while, they'll get you when you're sitting there listening to audio log. Oh no, nothing's going to attack me. I'm listening to this audio log.
Right.
That's not necessarily true.
Yep. Even if it's a door slamming in your face or something, yeah, you'll be thrown off. So I'm very much looking forward to the second half of this big adventure. Y'all ready to pick this conversation up, say, a week from now?
I think so. Yeah.
All right, great.
do it.
We'll lock down the exact time, but that sounds like a good time frame. So let's see. We'll have a post looking for your thoughts on the second half of the game, the next 6 chapters, the grand finale, and that'll be up on August 2nd. So Monday, August 2nd. If you've been watching this so far, thank you. I hope you think that we're giving the game the discussion it deserves, and you can join our conversation or support it over at patreon.com/minmax with 2 N's. So we appreciate the support, and we look forward to reading your comment about the second half of Dead Space. And thanks for playing along, everybody at home, and thanks for playing along, everybody on the panel here. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to the grand finale. Jacob Geller, where should people go if they really want to just soak in your voice? Is that the best way to put it?
Just go to youtube.com and search Jacob Geller. I'll be right there.
Right there with the big essay about Dead Space 2.
That's right. Yeah. And I should say in that essay, heap a lot of praise on Dead Space 1 as well. It is not a like one is better than the other type essay.
Okay, gotcha. Zach, what's going on? Where do you want people to go?
I guess if you want to not play a horror game and a happy city builder where you fly around in the sky, pretty much the opposite of this, I have a game out called Airborne Kingdom, and it's out on the Epic Game Store.
There we go. Sweet. Kate, where should people go?
Yeah, so you can find me at Oh by Mithrandir. All of my work is on butwhythoughpodcast.com. I am currently covering Fantasia Fest, which is a genre international film festival out of Canada. So I will be having a lot of horror and a lot of actually Japanese manga adaptations, live action adaptations that I'm going to be reviewing. So, and it's we got 5 of us there. So we're pretty much covering like everything from the fest. So
wow.
You can find it over at butwhythoughpodcast.com and keep up with us at butwhythoughpc on Twitter, Instagram, all those things. And if you want to talk, we have a Discord. That's right.
Yeah.
My husband keeps telling me to plug our Discord. Discord.gg/BUTWHYTHO. We do a whole bunch of community events. We have places to talk about games, movies, you name it, we got it. So
That's sweet. Also, I know I was obsessed with this for the deepest dive on The Thing, but I'm just obsessed with the fact that you're a Rotten Tomatoes certified film critic. That's the coolest thing in my mind. And I saw, it's so cool, but I saw you tweeting recently about Jungle Cruise from Disney, which, for the record, I feel like since the first trailer, I've been like, I think this is going to be good, everybody. I know it's easy to be cynical, but this seems good. And you tweeted that it was good.
So
hang on, you're blowing out your mic on Discord. You're so excited about it.
sorry. It's like The Mummy and Pirates of the Caribbean had a baby.
That sounds great.
Jungle
Sounds good.
Cruise.
I thought you were scared of babies.
I am, but not
Okay.
this one because it has The Rock. So
The
all on
beautiful
board.
rock baby. Check it out.
Oh no.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much, everybody, for following along and playing along, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you next week for the grand finale for the deepest dive on Dead Space. Bye, everybody. If you are sick of snark, clickbait, and an avalanche of movie news, you can help support independent games media by subscribing to MinMax's YouTube channel here or checking out the benefits over on Patreon. It's a nice, clean handshake. You support us, and we won't make dumb, condescending stuff for you. Your support helps us continue our mission of focusing on games, friends, and getting better. Patreon.com/MinMax with 2 N's. We'd appreciate it.